lost.
Yeah,
But if she were winning when we get up in the morning and get about our things.
That's it, all right.
Right, have a good show.
All right, take care, Lee. It is the 9 till noon show now at 9 o'clock. Time for a news update. Good morning, Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. The UK is expected to outline proposals to remove checks on British goods destined for Northern Ireland today. It's one part of the UK government's plan to rewrite the Northern Ireland Protocol if talks with the EU fail to progress. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is also set to introduce legislation removing the European Court of Justice's power in Northern Ireland. Belfast Telegraph's Alison Morris believes this is a tactical move by Boris Johnson.
British government intend to, as I understand it, override Section 7A of the withdrawal agreement, which is the part that gives the European Court of Justice jurisdiction over Northern Ireland. And the other aspect of it is this new system for dealing with the movement of goods. Liz Truss will then say that any goods coming from GB to Northern Ireland that are labelled as being for Northern Ireland will no longer be checked. He hopes that it would help the DUP get over the line enough that they would go back into the executive, and it keeps those sort of rebel backbench MPs quiet, and therefore then they don't threaten his future and his leadership.
Complaints to the Children's Ombudsman soared by 79% last year, with 2% of them coming from Donegal. With more detail, here's Donna Marie Doherty.
2,126 complaints were made to the Ombudsman for Children's Office in 2021. 908 of them were linked to COVID-related issues like restrictions in schools, uncertainty over the Leaving Cert and supports for children with disabilities during the pandemic. 53% of complaints were related to education, with 10% of those about bullying. There were 42 complaints from Donegal, 2% of the national total, the same percentage as in 2020. Ombudsman for Children Dr Niall Muldoon said while the increase can be partly attributed to a resumption of services following the blanket closures of 2020, a large proportion of complaints related directly to COVID-19 issues. He concluded children are often recognised for their ability to learn, to adapt and to accept change, but in 2021 even the most resilient child was tested.
Pressure is mounting on the government to clarify when this year's Leaving Cert results will be issued. It emerged yesterday the usual mid-August date is likely to be delayed, but the CEO of the Technological Higher Education Association says any delays will have a knock-on effect for the start of the academic year and on students trying to secure accommodation. And a 4-day working week could help resolve the staffing crisis in the health service. Younger healthcare workers have been increasingly moving overseas to the likes of Canada and Australia since the COVID pandemic in search of better pay and working conditions. Trials of a 4-day working week are underway in Scotland and Spain. Dr Catherine Conlon, Senior Medical Officer in the Department of Public Health at St Finbarr's in Cork, says the health sector is already teetering on the verge of breakdown. She says restructured work practices could help.
The problem is trying to retain doctors, young doctors, trying to retain nurses who are currently working a 3-day shift of 12 hours a day, which if that could be converted to a 4-day working week where they're working, the basic 8-hour day, that could make a real difference in terms of staffing.
Largely cloudy to start today with patchy rain and drizzle. It'll become drier through the morning, but scattered showers will develop in the late afternoon and evening, turning heavy and thundery at times. Highs of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius today in moderate to fresh southerly winds. That's Highland Radio News. Back with more at 10 o'clock.
COVID-19 can still cause serious illness, especially in people at higher risk. We need to keep protecting each other. So stay home if you have symptoms. Wear a mask in healthcare settings, public transport and busy places. Let fresh air in if you're meeting indoors. Keep hands clean. And get a COVID-19 vaccine and booster. Let's keep looking out for each other. From the HSE, for us all.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127. And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest. The 9 to noon show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello, very good morning to you. 4 minutes past 9. It's Tuesday the 17th of May. You're very welcome along to another edition of the 9 till noon show, and we have the lines open for you right now. If you want to comment on any of the items we've lined up for you, or to raise your own issues, your comments, anything at all, get in contact with us. 086 60 25,000, your WhatsApps and your texts to that number, or give us a call on 074 91 25,000, and your comments come to us via email on, as you might expect, comments@highlandradio.com. You can watch the show, of course, highlandradio.com. Check it out there. You'll see the link. Or you can watch on our social media. Right, let's get on with a look at today's front pages of the newspapers. And we'll start with the Donegal People's Press. And it now appears likely that Donegal's 3 major road projects costing at least €500 million won't start until 2026 at the earliest. Early forecast costs for the N15, N13 Ballybofey-Stranrawer bypass, 150 to 180 million. The N56, N13 Letterkenny-Manacunningham Road between 100 and 125 million. And the N14 Manacunningham-Lifford Road between 180 and 220 million have been published. They're based on 2020 prices and no inflation or programme risks have been added. So given the current rising costs and external factors such as the economy, COVID and the war in Ukraine, it's expected these costs could be much higher and won't start for another 4 odd years. Important infrastructure, that is, for the development of the county. I think we'd all agree. The Derry Journal tells us that as bus drivers strike poised to shut down Derry Public's transport network for a week, it's been averted following 11th hour talks. Last night, the Unite and GMB unions agreed to suspend the strike after TransLink tabled a new pay offer. GMB, which had balloted for the strike alongside Unite, said it was suspending the action until workers have voted on the new offer as a gesture of goodwill. The stoppage was due to start today and would have run until May 23rd, but for the last-ditch talks, which is good news for those of you using those transport services. On to the Irish Independent now, and households will get $4,800 per year for hosting refugees as backdated payments are set to kick in from July. The Cabinet will this morning give final approval for the €400 monthly payment for households that take in refugees. The Irish Independent understands that homeowners who have given their second homes to refugees will also receive the payment. It will be paid into bank accounts by the Department of Social Protection with funding provided by the Department of Children. It's understood that households will have to apply to receive the payment, which is meant to support families who take in refugees by helping to pay for costs such as food and utility bills. New laws will have to be introduced for the payment to be put in place. Senior government sources were unable to say last night how much the measure will cost, as it would be demand-led. However, it's believed that around 20 million to 50 million has been budgeted for the payment. Do you think this will lead to more people making parts of their homes or second homes available? Is it enough? Perhaps if it's a room, they might be inclined to cover costs there. But how big will the demand be? I wonder. I think in time just we might see that the demand wasn't great, but maybe it's something that you're looking at. If so, let us know why. If not, let us know why. 086 60 20 5000. Would you let your spare room be used by a Ukrainian refugee now that €400 is to be made available from government to you? I just think a lot of people, if they had that space already, may have already decided on some other income, Airbnb or such, I don't know. But what do you think? Anyway, the Irish Daily Mail. This is a story we've been flagging right from the very moment it was announced that hotels would be used to house refugees, and that's its impact on the tourism industry. And it's only now, really, it's getting the headlines that were inevitable. The front of the Irish Daily Mail. There are fears for the tourism industry as thousands of refugees are forced to take up beds in hotels and B&Bs while the government fails to house them. Around 17,200 beds in hotels, guest houses and B&Bs are now home to refugees as the country grapples with finding a solution to the greatest humanitarian crisis since the Second World War in the middle of the housing crisis. And as we heard in this programme last week, of course, for some hotels, this is good news. This is guaranteed income, guaranteed occupancy throughout the course of the year. But if you're looking to come to Donegal and you search hotels or B&Bs or hostels, wherever it might be, and there's no availability, will you go elsewhere? And then that spend from tourists doesn't come into the county and it doesn't trickle down to restaurants, bars, newsagents and so on and so forth. But the paper says that this will impact staycationers and businesses as peak tourism season approaches due to a lack of beds. inflated prices and a drop in footfall, TDs and businesses groups have said. The government also faces being sued over a potential 2-year loss of trade to restaurants near City West Hotel in Dublin due to its contract to house Ukrainian refugees. But as I say, that's one test case potentially in Dublin. I think we could see more elsewhere. If you're in the industry, if you have a view on that, maybe you agree or disagree for that matter, you know the numbers there, get in touch. Hard to make out really what Boris Johnson's stance is on the Northern Ireland Protocol. It depends on which quote of his you read and how you read it. But British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has signalled that his government will begin the process of taking unilateral action to remove parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol, while insisting the post-Brexit deal will not be scrapped but fixed. Now, he's strangely in this day and age, he wants to negotiate with the EU with this insurance policy in his back pocket of a unilateral change or scrapping of the protocol. Now, it's very unusual to go into, well, it wouldn't be maybe in a business, and low-level stuff, but for one country to try and go into negotiations with another bloc of countries threatening to take unilateral action if they don't do what you say. I don't think the EU, the European Commission, can back down to that, can they? Well, Mr Johnson travelled to the north yesterday to meet the 5 main political parties in a bid to restore Stormont power sharing, which effectively collapsed last Friday after the DUP blocked the election of a speaker as part of its continuing protest over the protocol. Following talks in Hillsborough Castle, described by parties as tough and robust, Mr Johnson said he tried to persuade the DUP in particular to return to governing. Britain Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is expected to make a statement on the UK government's plans to unilaterally override parts of the protocol, the part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement, which avoided a hard border on the island of Ireland by placing a customs and regulatory border in the Irish Sea. But also it a little bit of sabre rattling, because there is word coming out of Britain that they might not be able to pass that measure till next month, even though they gave a deadline of today. The circle begins to tighten on the Kinahans and their organised crime group. More than 600 people have been banned from entering America due to their links to the Kinahan cartel. And it's quite interesting for followers of boxing that quite a number of people who had come out in support of Daniel Kinahan or who have YouTube news channels in inverted commas that are always quite favourable to him, they were absent from the big couple of weeks of boxing. They normally would have been in America for the likes of Katie Taylor's fights, Canelo's fights, but they weren't there because probably they weren't allowed in there because there's been a huge ban of people with associations to Daniel Kinahan. Some of the world's leading boxing figures fear they could be barred from the United States because of their links to mob boss and wannabe fight promoter Daniel Kinahan. Assistant Garda Commissioner John O'Driscoll confirmed the bans while on a trip to the US with other top cops. He said the number of people who have been denied entry into the US has grown. It's over 600 at this stage as a consequence of the targeting of the Kinahan organised crime group. And the senior officer said those denied entry to the States will be denied entry into other jurisdictions if they were to try and gain entry. But it will be interesting to see, because there are very influential figures in boxing who would have had glowing tributes for Daniel Kinahan, but because they are rich and because fights going ahead or not might be based on their travel plans, I wonder will those bans be flexible to allow them to continue to travel. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that. I think it's fair to say that most of us are concerned about the rising cost of living. We're seeing obviously fuel prices going up, home heating oil prices going through the roof, gas as well. It's clear now when you go shopping that there is a change in terms of how much it costs to do your weekly shop. Everywhere you turn, prices are going up. So it's no surprise, and it's covered in the Irish Daily Star today, to read that almost all people are worried about their future finances due to the rising cost of living, new findings show. Research from askpoll.ie shows price hikes are causing 83% of adults to worry about their financial future. Inflation is at a 22-year high, with the Central Statistics Office confirming that prices rose by an average of 7% in the year to April 2022. That's across the board, but obviously in certain areas those increases were greater. More than a quarter of people, that's 26%, are struggling to meet their mortgage or rent payments, while 18% feel they can't afford to socialise. Most people are worried about their future financial situations, with 26% fearing they will be unable to save for a mortgage deposit and 21% worried about meeting future bills and household costs. Yet at the same time, and I note on Leo Varadkar's Twitter yesterday, they're talking about our growth being double the European average or the second highest amongst the EU, and that, business continues to do well. Why is that not trickling down? How can we have the government able to welcome growth in the economy and, things looking really quite good from that perspective, yet it's clear to all of us that things are worsening? Why is that gap? Anyone have an insight into that? 086 60 25,000. A rising tide should lift all boats, shouldn't it? So if the country is doing well, if we have the second highest growth forecast for this year and great expectations for 2023, why are most of us worried about the cost of living going forward? Why are a quarter of us struggling to pay the mortgage? Why are those that do have a bit of money, perhaps 20% of them, concerned that they can't socialise anymore? They don't have that spare money to socialise because the rising cost has been eaten into that. So where's the gap there? Obviously, must be a cohort of people that are doing really, really well, while the rest of us slip further behind. That must be the case. Finally, in the Irish Daily Mirror, this is a shocking story, not easy for anyone to listen to, but it's one that we can't ignore. Child killer Karen Harrington has been found guilty of the brutal murder of Tot Santina Corley. This is a case we've all been following closely. Harrington, who's 38, is now beginning a life sentence behind bars for the cruel killing of the 2-year-old. A jury at the Central Criminal Court in Cork yesterday found it was she who inflicted 53 catastrophic injuries on the little girl. And I think, the overwhelming majority of all of us, really what we do is we want to protect children, don't we? We want to make sure they're safe, and we get worried if they fall over and bang their head and have a little bump. And such a gap then to someone like this who could inflict such a sustained series of assaults on this beautiful young girl. But Harrington of Lakelands Crescent in the city was on trial for a fortnight over the July 19 killing. The jury took 4 hours and 46 minutes to return a unanimous guilty verdict. At the time of the murder, Harrington, who was in a relationship with Santina's dad, Michael Corley, the trial was told he trusted her and had no concerns about leaving her daughter with her. The injuries, I won't go through the injuries because I think a lot of you are following it maybe on the nighttime news, and it really is unimaginable what that little angel had to endure in the final stages of her life. Really hard to comprehend. Okay, if you have any comments on any of the stories that are making the front pages and inside the pages today, get in contact with us, or if you want to raise your own issues, I'll remind you of the text and WhatsApp number one more time for now, 086 60 25,000.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Better value lives at Dunnes Stores with big savings on your favourite brands. Start your day with selected Kellogg's breakfast cereals like Special K Red Berry 500 gram, now half price. Or save on washing essentials like 45 pot packs of Bold Fairy and Ariel, now just €11 each. Plus, with our 10 off 50 grocery voucher, you save even more, which means every trip to Dunnes Stores means better value. Dunnes Stores, always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used on next grocery shop of €50 or more.
Is your car due a service? For the month of May, get your car serviced at iMotors Letterkenny and avail of a free vehicle health check and a free oil change. For more details, check out our website or Facebook. Call us today on 074 913 4567 to book in.
Terms and conditions apply.
Wetsuit on and underwater by 8. Aprons on, breakfast orders in, conversation flowing, loving every second.
Every day is different. There's always new faces. It really suits me.
It fits my schedule. I can see friends, do my yoga, balance work with life and enjoy both.
My career in tourism works for me.
And mine works for me.
Get a career in tourism that works for you. Visit tourismcareers.ie. Brought to you by Fáilte Ireland.
If you fancy a lunch today in relaxed surroundings, at Kelly's Diner in Letterkenny, you're spoiled for choice. With everything from a renowned all-day breakfast to something lighter, like a chicken wrap or soup and a sandwich of your choice. Lunch specials from just $6.50 are served every Monday to Thursday from 12 to 3, and a full a la carte menu is served all day at Kelly's award-winning diner, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
Okay, some of your comments coming in early. Good morning, Greg. Regarding the payment for housing refugees, could you please find out if receipt of the €400 payment would be considered as an income for those on a state pension or other state benefits, thereby reducing them accordingly? Thanks. It is a very good question, and one we'll try and get an answer to. My suspicion is though, that it couldn't be seen as another income, could it? Because that would discourage people further. I didn't get my €200 off my ESB bill, says another caller. I'm with Board Gash. Am I the only one? Is there other people who didn't get it? Thanks. Well, you're not the only Board Gash customer who didn't get it, because we had a couple of texts from people earlier in the week or towards the end of last week with that same company who also hadn't received it. Right, can you help this listener? I'm looking for an orthopaedic chair for someone who's getting out of hospital, and also for an over-the-bed table on wheels which can go up and down, very similar to those in the hospital. So has anyone got that gear out there? I know sometimes, and we've had it in the past, and I'm not sure it applies to this type of equipment, but we have had conversations with people in the past that have been given this equipment and tried to return it, but they couldn't. So maybe someone out there has an orthopaedic chair or indeed one of those over-the-bed tables on wheels, you know, the ones you might see in hospital. It's for someone who is looking to care for someone at home. We have a contact number here, 08660 25000, 08660 25000, if you can or want to help there. Hi, Greg. Just letting you know there's a scam text going around, supposed to be from AIB Bank. I got the text at 7:02 at the weekend in the morning. Yeah, indeed. I am being bombarded at the moment with spam callers. But again, as I said, I think I'm very lucky. My phone's really good at picking it up. I'm not sure if it's the network or the phone itself, but they are being flagged. They are being flagged as spam for me. Right, okay, so as we have been talking about on this programme right since the first time it was announced that this was to happen, we are now seeing more concern being talked about this more widespread. Fears for the tourism industry as thousands of refugees are forced to take up beds in hotels and B&Bs. Adrian Cummins is CEO of the Restaurants Association of Ireland. Adrian, thanks for taking the call this morning. I'm sure you've had a few inquiries, to say the least. Line 2. Sorry, you have to put Adrian through on line 2, please, Michaela, if that's okay. One more comment while we wait for Adrian to join us. I feel €6 an hour for a 16-year-old is a good start. This is off the back of a text we had yesterday. Someone of 16 years of age working in the hospitality industry. We all have to start somewhere. I blame adults for creating this ill feeling about wages. It will increase as they go forward. Remember back when you were 16. Thank you. Enjoying your show. Cheers. I appreciate it. And that kind of is how I was feeling. Adrian Cummins, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Right, okay. I mean, I think we all agree, don't we, Adrian, that there was a very severe crisis that's ongoing and we had to react, and we would have hoped that the use of tourism accommodation would have been a short measure, 3 months. It was said at the beginning, but I mean, it was clear, because we have no other housing stock, that this was going to roll into the summer, and here we are. For example, we've got a very popular hotel in the heart of Letterkenny, and its manager confirmed to us there towards the end of last week that they are likely to house refugees up until the end of the year. That is a huge knock-on effect, Adrian.
Well, let me be very clear from the very start. We fully support the government's policy around supporting the Ukrainian refugees coming into Ireland. These people have been traumatised. They're in a war zone, and they need accommodation. One of the first war since World War II that's devastating the Ukrainian nation. And we've always said, and I reached out to the Taoiseach immediately when this happened to say that the hospitality industry would support the efforts in whatever way possible. And we've done this in the past, and we'll continue to do so. What we see now is that we have a number of hotels, bed and breakfast, guest houses that are being used by the Department of Children as for accommodation units. Certain counties have a higher proportion of refugees compared to other counties, and some of those are in the western seaboard in the tourist areas. So there will be pinch points during the summer where, let's say, that you will not have as much bed capacity for the tourist season as we head into what we would call the post-economic recovery post-COVID. And that said, hotel accommodation is probably not the best accommodation for refugees, and we're saying the government, we need to have a longer-term approach to this. But we are where we are, and we do support the government's actions, and we're pointing out to them very clearly that this is an issue.
That being said, it's good for hotels because they are guaranteed a certain level of occupancy throughout the course of the year. Is there any ill feeling towards the whole hotel industry? They're okay if they're involved in this, but the surrounding bars and restaurants and newsagents and what have you, or soft play areas or whatever it might be that might benefit from tourists, they're the ones that might feel that they're losing out more.
Yes, and I take that point where you have, let's take a tourist town that has taken in a substantial amount of refugees, maybe one hotel, two hotels, or possibly three hotels has been recommissioned for other purposes. That means the bars, restaurants, craft centres, visitor attractions will not see the level of business they did see pre-COVID. And what I would say to the government is that, here's the hospitality industry again stepping up to the plate when the nation needs our support, and we are doing it again. The big issue for us down the road, which is going to come to a pinch point again in October, will be the VAT campaign, the VAT 9 for our industry. I think the government should extend it. It's extended to the 28th of February. I think that needs to be extended to the end of next year. And I think that would be a big plus for our industry. And I think that would be, let's say, an issue that needs to be solved, needs to be rectified, but also would be something in terms of a contribution back to the hospitality industry in terms of, let's say, the loss of business that they have in certain areas. But I will go back to my initial point. We support the government 100% in their efforts. 38,000 refugees have come into the country. It is projected that it will go up as far as 80,000. We haven't seen that level of numbers yet. There is a big campaign to trying to get people moved into more permanent, not permanent, but more self-catering, apartment type accommodation.
Yep, but you know as well as I do, there's not going to be a huge uptake from the general public to house people at €400 a month because they may be still at a loss. Also that people, in terms of holiday homes, second homes, they may well choose to want to use them in the summer. And also, there's just a general lack of housing. The most recent DAFT report underlined that. Also, we have to also consider the reports out this morning suggesting that 18% of people now are starting to wonder, do they have enough money to socialise? And then when you take into the fact that people might be discouraged to travel to the likes of certain parts of Donegal or wherever it might be because there's no accommodation available, or the accommodation that is there is becoming very expensive because of demand, it's starting to feel to me like a perfect storm for a very negative spell for the hospitality industry.
Yes, and you're correct. We are in a perfect storm. We are in a perfect storm in terms of the economic impact that the Ukrainian war is affecting us. Like every other household in this country, every other citizen in this country. The cost of running a business has rocketed. It's nearly up 30% on 3 years ago when you were back in normal trading levels. And every household has seen the increase in home heating bills, etc., and that will continue through inflation. And a lot of that is down to the Ukrainian war because it's supply and demand of fuel into Europe from Russia, and we're trying to move towards other supplies. But I'm very conscious that businesses that are in tourist areas, that there will be displacement. And I'm saying now, as a representative body, we're trying to balance this. And I think the government has done a lot for our industry, but they can go a little bit further now, which maybe in terms of that VAT rate, which is sacrosanct to our industry. And
but that doesn't resolve 2022. I mean, the VAT rate is in place for 20. So maybe your members want to know, like, what are you proposing as it relates to this year? We can't have an entire industry that is being supported because it's not profitable in and of itself. It's being supported through 2020, 21, 2022. Who's to say what the situation might be in 2023? Like, there has to be a better solution than tax breaks or business supports. And if so, I mean, do you have it?
Well, I don't have that answer. I don't think any other European country across Europe has the same answer as well. When you look at Poland with 3 million Ukrainian refugees in their country, do they have the answer? No, they don't, because I'm in constant contact with my counterparts across the European Union through our representative organisation in Brussels. And we're trying to get through this, and I think there has to be a bit of patience as well. And I don't want to be a spokesperson for the government, maybe I'm sounding like that, but I am saying here is that these people are very unfortunate, and the Irish people have been very open and welcoming, and we will continue to do so, and I will stand up for that. But I will also advocate as hard as I can, like we did during COVID, for business supports. And we will do that as well.
And I get where you're coming from, Adrian, and I really understand the line that you have to walk, right? And also, I also understand our responsibility. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing what we're doing, but I have to ask questions to try and progress the argument. But whilst I'm listening to your words also, I am also conscious that businesses are closing, restaurants are closing, they can't stay open, there isn't the turnover for them. Your members, maybe they've been members of your association for quite some time, pubs are closing, never to open again. They might feel we need to do something more immediate right now. They're in a panic situation because they will not see the summer, and if they do, they won't make enough money to see through the winter. And they're starting to look at their business and go, "What is the point here? What about me?"
And you're correct in saying that. And let me just what we're trying to do here at the moment. What I'm trying to do is trying to establish where is all the refugees in what towns across the state. I don't have that answer, and I think the government should publish that in terms of what's the bed capacity that's taken out of the system in county by county basis, and that will give us a very clear perspective of what the knock-on effects. And I know one county, for example, because I've done the research in just one, and that's County Clare. It's anecdotal, but I've done as much as I can. But we need the official data being published on this, and that will give you a fairly clear idea on what businesses will be affected in what counties. And I think we can do a bespoke measure here, not for those businesses. That's what I would be calling for at the Tourism and Hospitality Forum, that is chaired by the Taoiseach and Minister for Tourism, Catherine Martin, in a couple of weeks' time. But also, I'm contacting Fáilte Ireland as well, which has an onus and a remit here because they register accommodation across the country. So they're the two avenues that I'm pursuing, along with the extension of that rate. But we need the correct data. I think we need to engage with government more so, and I think we need to have an open and honest conversation about this. Will the refugees be here for how long? What does the government know that we don't know yet? My gut is that they'll be here for longer than 12 months. That's my gut, looking at the pictures coming from eastern Ukraine that's been devastated by the war. Some of those cities will never go back there because they're absolutely flattened. Like, if you came from Mariupol, can you imagine going back there trying to rebuild your lives? You won't. That's not what's going to happen. So, and we have had experience of this in the past, but on a smaller scale. We did it for the Kosovo refugees during the war. We did it in the Bosnians during the Bosnian War, and we did it for other crises as well. Mm-hmm. And we'll do it again, but this is on a larger scale. And I think we're trying to find our feet as quickly as possible. The refugees started to come in March. We're now in May. I know there was a big push to get accommodation. We've got that sorted now from terms of emergency accommodation, but we need to look at what is the longer term for this. And I agree with you, that we need to have a greater long-term approach to this.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's at least 10% of available accommodation is currently being taken up. And as you said, that's going to vary from county to county. But we have a responsibility and we have to meet that as well. It's a legal binding responsibility. I think it's 2% is our share. And that's what we're doing. And I'm not against that, by the way, Adrian, but I'm just trying to get all views that might be listening out there and get the views to you. A quick word, if you don't mind, and I appreciate so much of your time. The government extending temporary laws allowing alcohol to be served in outdoor seating areas of pubs and restaurants. How big is that for the industry, considering everything we've been talking about?
It is huge for the hospitality industry, and as everybody knows, and the part of the Northwest will know this extremely well, because, you know, we're moving towards the summer season. Obviously today is kind of a change in the weather, but over the last few days it was very much a continental style summer that we're embracing. People during COVID wanted outdoor hospitality. They embraced it, they want more of it. And this gives legal certainty for businesses. I know it's on a temporary basis for 6 months, and we will be looking for that to be extended on a permanent basis. But what it means is that if you are a hospitality business, a pub or restaurant, and you serve alcohol, you'll be able to serve to a licensed public area that you get your license from your local authority, but you'll be able to serve alcohol into that area. That means that the guards can go about their business to do other matters, that they're not going in stopping businesses from serving alcohol, which means that this gives legal certainty for them. We had an issue down in Galway last year where there wasn't legal certainty for it. Now we do, and I think it brings a full circle approach to the issue, and we welcome that, and we welcome Helen McEntee's approach to it. But we will have reform of licensing laws coming up over the next number of months. I think that needs to be speeded up. They're outdated. Everybody agrees with that, and I think hopefully the Oireachtas will move forward and get that done as soon as we can.
All right, thank you for your time, Adrian. I appreciate it. That's Adrian Cummins from the Restaurant Association of Ireland. 086 60 25,000 for your views via WhatsApp or text on that number. A caller says, do we know if politicians have taken in any Ukrainians as they pledged? I'm not going to name their names because I did hear the pledge, but I don't know the answer to it. We'll try and find that out. Why did they not house refugees in courthouses, big government buildings which are lying empty, says another texter. But you also have to think of an acceptable level of standard of living, presumably. Right, if you want to call in your comment, by the way, feel free to do so. 07491 25,000, that is the number there.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages with life cover provided at no additional cost. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
They say you should have your second baby first, because with your second baby, you'll have learned what to do, what not to do, what's best for baby and best for you. Like the Loopy Loo range from Lidl. Everything your baby needs, including award-winning nappies from only 99 cent. When you know what to do, Loopy Loo. Available exclusively at Lidl. More for you. See our full range at lidl.ie/Loopy Loo.
Fly with Loganair from City of Derry to Edinburgh and immerse yourself in the live shows and street food of the Fringe Festival this summer, with discounts for children aged 11 and under.
Fly with me, I want to take you there. Precious moments of this journey, to where homeward bound again.
Book now at loganair.co.uk. 15 kilo luggage allowance as standard.
The O'Neill Sportswear Massive Warehouse Clearance Sale is back by popular demand. For one weekend only, County GA jerseys, leisure wear, including t-shirts, tracksuit bottoms, half-zips, hoodies and jackets, are all reduced to clear. Open from 9 a.m. Friday, May 20th and Sunday, May 22nd. The sale will take place at O'Neill Sportswear Warehouse off the Melmount Road roundabout, Strabane.
Donegal County Council invites you to a public drop-in event in the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana on Monday the 23rd of May from 3 until 8 p.m. to comment on a number of plans and projects being prepared. Review of the Donegal County Development Plan 2018 to 2024, a proposed variation to the current County Development Plan, the Repowering Buncrana Rural Regeneration Project and a draft preliminary design for Buncrana Leisure Centre, with formal presentations at 7 from Donegal County Council and the Herlick of Donegal County Council, Councillor Jack Murray. For more information, visit donegalDevPlan.ie and donegalcoco.ie.
Now, you may not feel this would affect you, but it may very well. Medical scientists are taking industrial action tomorrow in frustration over long-standing pay and career development issues. The action means that routine laboratory services are being withdrawn from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m, which will affect routine hospital and GP services across the country. The workplace of the majority of medical sciences is at laboratories in public hospitals. Brona O'Leary is Industrial Relations Officer with the Medical Laboratory Scientists Association and joins us now. Hi, Brona.
Hi, Greg. Thanks so much for having us on.
No problem. Now, before we get into the issues, perhaps you could explain, because this is the type of work that goes on in the background, really important, I think, to the chain of medical care, but maybe not everyone knows or is fully aware what's going on. So talk to us the role of medical scientists across the country.
Yes, that is indeed the case. I think nobody, unless they work in labs themselves, realises that medical laboratory diagnostics are essential and underpin almost every healthcare procedure. So you'll know if you go to your GP and have bloods taken, they go off into the space and then they arrive back with results to your GP. But those results go to a hospital lab and are tested by highly skilled and highly trained medical scientists who are working in all sorts of disciplines, not just blood sciences, also microbiology tests. So basically any specimens that you would be giving in the hospital or in the community will go to a lab for testing. We're kind of a hidden force in the hospital, and most people haven't heard of us unless maybe for COVID testing. We've been more in the news lately. But the long-lying issues, the underlying issues in the profession have predated that.
Yeah,
so,
this is going on for quite some time, isn't it?
We have a 20-year claim for parity with other scientific colleagues in the department who work alongside us and perform identical work. We did have that parity awarded to us in 2001 by an expert group, and then it was withdrawn. We lost it in 2002 due to benchmarking, but that was an inadvertent effect. It wasn't an actual decision of the benchmarking body that we shouldn't be have parity with the biochemists.
Yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, presumably what this means over time is, you know, there's a potentially low morale, frustration, and that means that people either don't go into that area of work, or if they are in there and they're doing great work, they go, you know what, I'm undervalued and I'm going to seek options elsewhere if they're available.
I couldn't have put it better myself. Every year we have really, really high point graduates coming into medical science courses, and a lot of them then, when they come out at the end, they may work for a few years in the lab, but a lot of them see that there isn't a career progression for them and that they're undervalued and not paid enough. The starting pay in particular is not good compared to other healthcare professionals. And many of them, because they go and do medicine, or they go into pharmaceuticals or other industrial or biotechnology roles, and are highly sought after for those roles.
Okay, so one of the key issues, medical scientists, they do the same work as other colleagues in hospital laboratories, but earn on average 8% less. So who are these other group of individuals doing the same work that are better paid? Like, what is the difference between the people we're talking about and the people that they work beside?
There is no difference. Currently, there was a historic difference that the biochemists in the biochemistry section of the laboratory had science degrees, and the medical scientists or medical laboratory technicians, as they were called, and we're talking 20 years ago, and before that, maybe even 30 years ago, didn't have science degrees. They now do all have science degrees, and 70% of them have master's degrees, and that is the difference. There are several disciplines in the laboratory, so it's only in the biochemistry labs there is this differential. But all the other labs manage fine without having two grades of scientists, but they do still need to be supported and to be paid more and to have the career progression opportunities.
Yeah, what is hampering the career progression for medical scientists?
We've been in talks for over 2 years now with the Department of Health and the HSE, and we felt we were pushing an open door. But in all those talks, and we've been talking to them directly, we've been in the WRC, we've been talking to them about on the sectoral bargaining clause of the Public Service Agreement, and they almost seem to be agreeing with us, but we haven't made any progress either on the career progression side or on the pay side. And that's why we've been forced into this action. This is a really, really big step for the MLSA. We have not gone on strike since 1969, and even then it wasn't a full work stoppage. This is all new to us, and our members are really, really regret the disruption that is going to be caused to patients and to our fellow colleagues in the health service by this action, but it is going to be quite a disruption, and we hope we can get into talks to make this issue go away and resolve it for the good of the laboratory service and for the Irish healthcare.
What is the hold up though? Where's the blockage? Who's resisting these calls?
It's hard for us to know, but there is a public service agreement, so the pay element, we've been trying to negotiate that with the HSE and the Department of Health, and it seems to be maybe there the blockage is the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, who are overseeing all of the pay. And we understand there have to be constraints on public pay, but this is a service that's dying on its feet. These are burnt out members who were already had big numbers of vacancies and now have had more of a workload due to COVID and have been coping with all of that and managed to implement COVID testing, get validated and up and running and get results out to patients in record time, and they can't do it anymore. They also, may I say, they provide a 24/7 service, so they are there manning. So after they do their day work, a lot of medical science stay on to do another shift of call or weekend extra services that have developed because of the role of medical science in healthcare. And they're doing all of this, and they're dealing with vacancies, and they need more students, but they don't have the time to train the students, and it's just a vicious circle that they can't take anymore. And
has this been costed, Brona, to bring people up to parity, to put in place that the progression that I think a lot of people who entered this line of work perhaps were assured would be there, and then they're there and they're putting in the years and it's not there. Do we know how much reform would be required and how much it might cost to bring people up to a point whereby we could avert future action?
Well, I mean, I think we've estimated that it's on average an 8% pay differential. So that's the sort of level we're talking about. I mean, I don't want to be negotiating on the airways either, but we are willing to look at mechanisms to get us there. And that is what our members have mandated us for when they voted for industrial action. But so we are willing to talk and enter into negotiations about it. But we would also add that developing the careers of medical science can deliver gains to the health service and save money. So while we don't have the figures for that, we are absolutely sure that this can be a win-win in the end.
And I don't want to be negative, but the powers that be might say that, people are already facing delays in the health service, maybe facing delays in finding the outcomes of bloods that will get through this. It won't really put the public up or down much in the longer. So in other words, like, what do you do next if this has that? If that's the attitude to this, what do you do next to further argue your points?
Well, I mean, I think unfortunately, Greg, that has been the attitude, perhaps not of the HSE, but I think there's a growing realisation. We've been in talks with the HSE for the last 2 weeks about contingency cover, because our members will be providing an emergency service throughout their action. And the level of detail we've had to go into to safeguard patient safety is quite, I think it's dawning on the powers that be that a modern hospital cannot function without a laboratory service. So we have 1 day of action this week. Next week there'll be 2 days of action, and the following week 3 days of action. And this cumulative effect will have a huge impact on waiting lists, on GP clinics, on outpatients, all of those things, every aspect of the service. And I mean, our members aren't going to be backing down on this, so we're hoping we can avert that for everybody's sake.
Obviously, you're plugging away, but has this been picked up politically?
We believe we have had some questions raised in the Dáil, and we're hoping that the pressure will be applied there too. The Minister keeps referring us back, the Minister for Health keeps referring us back to the Public Service Pay Agreement, which we've tried in, and we need some more assistance on that because it's not working. We went to the Public Service Agreement group on this, and they recommended that we would sit around the table with the HSE and talk further, and we waited 3 weeks for a meeting, which was then delayed by a week, and they came back to us with nothing new and no further give. And so that's why we then had to proceed with the action.
Okay, Brona, we'll see how things pan out. Hopefully a resolution is found sooner rather than later. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Greg.
Brona O'Leary, Industrial Relations Officer with the Medical Laboratory Sciences Association. It sounds so familiar to other stories we've covered in the past, doesn't it? Certainly elements of the school secretaries fight there and others. Went for a jog along Kinnegad Beach, Rathmullen yesterday evening. Absolutely stomach churning to see what looked like washed up toilet paper along the shore. Is this just some of the residue of sewage? I don't know, but that's disgusting, isn't it? Those who follow or work in stock and shares see the crash coming next month and will be far worse than 2008, believes a caller. Last one just before the break. The government has this country destroyed. They've taken these people into Ireland while their own people struggle to survive and live on the streets. What is taking place in this world is unheard of. There is a disaster coming and the people of this country will struggle to even survive. In fact, many people will not survive. I hope that doesn't come to pass. And I don't think really it is quite as stark as you outline. We will get through it. We always get through it. Providing, obviously, things elsewhere in the world don't escalate to catastrophic levels. But we're in a cycle, and people that have been around long enough will have seen these cycles before. There are other things that factor into it, but the basics seem to generally be the same. We are part of a union, and we have a responsibility. It's a legal binding responsibility, and I presume that's what we are fulfilling at the moment. And most people out there believe it is the right thing to do, and it's what we should do. And you know, you can choose to watch what news you like, but if you see what some people, many people in the likes of Ukraine are enduring, it's absolutely horrendous. Okay. Coming up after 10 o'clock, we've the latest from An Garda Síochána, the Community Garda information item. That's coming up for you with the latest appeals and information. That and so much more. Stay right where you are. Back after these with some more of your comments.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Quilcha cares for Ireland's forests sustainably. As our country seeks to combat climate change, we'll do more. Our ambition is to create new forests, manage our existing forests for greater carbon capture, and provide more habitats to enhance biodiversity. We'll support creating new homes by delivering sustainable Irish wood products. And we'll increase the number of beautiful forest recreation spaces for everyone to enjoy. Quilcha, forests for climate, nature, wood and people, for a greener future for all.
Milford Tiles, wood flooring and bathware. Milford Retail Park now open. Large range of wall and floor tiles on display and in stock. Over 70 different laminate floors to suit every pocket. Tilers and wood footers available. New bathware showroom now open. Milford Tiles, wood flooring and bathware. 083 091 0707.
When it comes to searching for a holiday, Atlantic Travel and Letterkenny deal with all the major tour operators from Dublin and Belfast to find you the best deals available. A week in the sun, a cruise, or maybe a short break. Whatever suits, you can book in confidence with Atlantic, knowing your holiday is protected should something go wrong. Take the hassle and worry out of your holiday booking with the award-winning Atlantic Travel, St Oliver Plunkett Road, Letterkenny. For a quote today, see Facebook, visit atlantictravel.ie or call 9126193.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Stress-free travel, 10 minutes from car park to departures gate, and a selection of 19 destinations across the UK and Europe to choose from can only be one place. Ireland West Airport. You're flying.
Largely cloudy to start today with patchy rain and drizzle, becoming drier through the morning, but scattered showers will develop this evening, turning heavy or thundery at times. Temperatures 16 or 17 degrees in moderate to fresh southerly winds. That's the weather for today. Morning, Greg. In relation to the cost of living and Leo Varadkar's comments, for a lot of us on a set wage, we're struggling to pay our bills. For an example, heating oil last year, €670. Yesterday, I paid €1,395. So that is over €600 that has to be found, and completely new spend. And that's just in one fill. Electricity, they say, same increase before I buy food, that is. So with no increase in my income, I have to find the money for these increases. That's why so many of us are struggling. Some people are lucky enough that they can increase their wages to cover these costs. Some are, but the majority of us simply aren't, and it's eating in if there's a disposable income there, it's chewing into that, and if there isn't, well, then it's making life even more difficult. So people have to make stark choices as it relates to filling their car to get to work or buying food. That's the reality of where we're living at the moment for many people. Christopher joins us on the programme now. Christopher, good morning to you.
Morning, how's it going, Greg?
I'm going good. Right, you believe that... Do you think we're over-dependent on multinationals?
Yeah, what you said this morning was about a kind of a two-tier economy, which kind of reminded me of stuff I was reading and writing about this last number of years. I mean, the crux of this, what I'm about to say, right, is dependent entirely on the phrase, do you believe that history repeats itself? And that's really what the story's about. So I might just go off key for a second, but I'll explain it very quickly. If you go back to Ireland hundreds of years ago, we were fishing, we were growing oats, we were an economy we were quite diverse, you know. Then along comes the potato with Sir Walter Raleigh from America. It was a miracle crop. It was very expensive in the beginning, but it suited moist, wet environments, and that's exactly what Ireland is. So we really got into the potato in a big way, and so much so that we basically got rid of everything else, you know. Then when blight came over on the boats from America, and it hit, it just wiped out the Irish. The Irish never recovered. It was desperate, you know. It was 1 million people died, 1 million people emigrated. So it was a miracle from America, and unfortunately the blight that came and destroyed it also came from America. And I couldn't help but draw a correlation between that story and what we're in today. We've got a situation where 51% of our corporation tax was paid by 10 American multinational companies. We've got a situation where 80% of our corporation tax was paid by 137 companies. That's a very small figure. But if you back of a bar mad calculation, any economist can do this. If they pull the pin tomorrow morning, if a blight, if you like, comes from America, who knows what that could be, just a policy change. We're going to repatriate American companies, whatever it's going to be. We've lost half our tax state. I think it's as bad as I'd love somebody to come on who's an expert in this field.
No, I understand what you're saying, but just to read Leo Varadkar's comments yesterday. Incredible news today from the CSO. March 2020 was best month on record for trade. Despite immense global challenges and uncertainty, trade significantly increased in every market, testament to strength and quality of so many business owners and workers around the country. And also those figures published that will show that for this year we will have the second highest growth, something like 5.8%. And Christopher, my point was, and you're talking to it, and I appreciate it. Where is the benefit of all of this? The majority of people, I think, are finding themselves slipping further and further backwards, right? Yet we are hearing tweets like that from the Taoiseach, and we are seeing these growth predictions, right? And I take your point on American companies and what have you, but that's right across all sectors, according to the Taoiseach there. Who's benefiting from it? Because it doesn't feel like there's very many people in Donegal, for example, benefiting, because we're all being squeezed. So where's the money going?
Yeah, well, okay. Well, if you take the shares last year, like if you'd invested in Shopify or Amazon, any of those companies, you would have doubled your money from the beginning of the pandemic up to a few weeks ago. But those shares are all crashing now. Basically, I think what's happening here is we've got big companies are skewing the figures. If you take, let's say, IKEA, the company in Ireland, the amount of product that they sell in Ireland it vastly outweighs what the domestic businesses would retail. So, they skew the figures. So, and it's not nobody's doing anything wrong here.
It's just business.
They're just so
it's
big.
Scale, yeah.
The scale is that if you added up all the Irish businesses together and weigh them up against these huge multinationals, we don't make any impact at all. The true Irish economy is, I hate to say it, almost insignificant.
All right. But we are an open economy, and that is the nature of an open economy, isn't it?
The question is, though, how do we deleverage? How do we unhook ourselves from such dependence?
We're going to struggle because, say, for instance, farming, they're being forced out of it. Many farmers would feel they're being forced out of it. So, in terms of that being a traditional way of making a living and a hugely important part of rural life, you'll see the fishermen are being paid to tie up their boats, or they're catching all the fish that they can in a very short period of time. Then the boats are being tied up. So say, for instance, those two industries, they might say, well, that's one way we could diversify, but they're being legislated out of business. So I don't know, we seem to be going in the opposite direction that you suggest we should be going.
Well, there's one good thing out of it. I mean, I hate being doom and gloom. I mean, we've had an entire generation which are being schooled, if you like, in big tech, So there's an education there that no university could provide. They're exposed to the development houses of
That's all well and
Apple,
good, but we've got no one to build houses. We've got no one to plumb houses.
That's
We've
true.
got no one to wire houses. We've got no one to roof houses. It's grand if everyone is sitting working remotely on their computer, but society can't survive like that because we need people with all different skill sets.
Yeah, the tradesmen are very short in the country. I'll agree with you there. And I think it's mainly driven by the fact that to be a tradesman is very difficult to pay what effectively is a crazy mortgage rates these days,
Yeah. All right, Christopher, listen, I have to go for the news at 10. Interesting comments from you. Thanks very much. Lovely to talk to you. All right, that was Christopher there. We've loads coming up for you over the next 2 hours. Stay right where you are. But for now, we'll take a quick break for the news with Donald Kavanagh. Rejoin us thereafter. Don't go anywhere.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. Donald Kavanagh at the news desk. The British government is meeting this morning to sign off on plans to scrap parts of the post-Brexit deal on Northern Ireland. It's understood the proposed measures would remove checks on British goods destined for Northern Ireland and also remove the European Court of Justice's jurisdiction over the North. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says if something is broken, it has to be fixed.
I've got to do what I can to fix things, to make things work for people. That's my job as Prime Minister of the UK. We did it before when Sinn Féin had problems with language. We worked very hard to sort things out. We got them back into the executive. There's a problem now with the protocol. It's not operating, to get to your point, it's not operating the way that I wanted. It's not operating the way that I thought it would operate.
A Lifford-Stranraer area councillor says the continued delays with the Twin Towns bypass are frustrating, but Donegal County Council will continue to push it and the other two 10T road projects in Donegal, the Letterkenny Link Road and the Manor Cunningham to Lifford Road. It's after a recent meeting of the Council's Road Strategic Policy Committee was told that rising costs and other issues mean it's likely to be 5 years before the projects actually start. Councillor Patrick McGowan says while there was some easing of traffic during the COVID restrictions, levels are now back to their peak in Ballybofey and Stranraer.
At least 4 or 5 days a week now in the town, morning and evening. You see long traffic jams, and we know that's very frustrating for passing traffic. It's very frustrating for businesses. But it's also extremely dangerous and frustrating for local people as well. Just simply on across the road, and we urgently need all three projects. It's a wee bit like chasing the rainbow. Every time we get to where we thought starting, the next thing ends, there's another issue and goes back. The belief is now that it'll be more likely to be 2026.
Complaints to the Children's Ombudsman soared by 79% last year, with 2% of the complaints coming from Donegal. With more detail, here's Donna Marie Doherty.
2,126 complaints were made to the Ombudsman for Children's Office in 2021. 908 of them were linked to COVID-related issues like restrictions in schools, uncertainty over the Leaving Cert and supports for children with disabilities during the pandemic. 53% of complaints were related to education, with 10% of those about bullying. There were 42 complaints from Donegal, 2% of the national total, the same percentage as in 2020. Ombudsman for Children Dr Niall Muldoon said while the increase can be partly attributed to a resumption of services following blanket closures of 2020, a large proportion of complaints relate directly to COVID-19 issues. He concluded children are often recognised for their ability to learn, to adapt and to accept change, but in 2021 even the most resilient child was tested.
It's been suggested that a 4-day working week could help resolve the staffing crisis in the health service. Younger healthcare workers have been increasingly moving overseas to the likes of Canada and Australia since the COVID pandemic in search of better pay and working conditions. Trials of a 4-day working week are underway in Scotland and Spain. Dr Catherine Conlon, Senior Medical Officer in the Department of Public Health at St Finbarr's Hospital in Cork, says the health sector is already teetering on the verge of breakdown. She says restructured working practices could help a lot.
The problem is trying to retain doctors, young doctors, trying to retain nurses who are currently working a 3-day shift of 12.
And looking at the weather forecast for today, largely cloudy this morning with some patchy rain and drizzle, but that will clear. It'll become increasingly drier through the morning, but scattered showers will develop in the late afternoon and into this evening. They'll turn heavy or thundery at times in highs of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, moderate to fresh southerly winds. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news again at 11 o'clock. Until then, from the news team, good morning. The obituary notices for this Tuesday morning, the 17th of May. The death has taken place of Canis Gamble, formerly of Corcullion, Castlefin. His remains will repose in Quigley's Funeral Home, Strabane, on Thursday morning from 11 o'clock, with service at 12 noon, followed by interment in Strabane Cemetery. The death has occurred of Rosie McCarran, née McGroarty, 9 McNeely Villas, Old Town, Letterkenny. Rosie's remains will repose at her late residence from 11 o'clock this morning. Funeral from there on Thursday to St Eunan's Cathedral, Letterkenny, for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock, with interment afterwards in Conwall Cemetery. Family time, please, from 10 p.m. to 11 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only, please. The death has taken place of James Kenneth Gallagher. Funeral service in Adair and Neely Funeral Home for the family circle and Kenneth's closest friends tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. The cortege will leave Adair and Neely at 2:45, travelling via Creve Road, Drumlocher, Tyroddy, Corcampbell to Crossroads Burial Ground for a private family burial. Family flowers only, please, donations if desired to Crossroads Presbyterian Church, care of Mr Richard Russell, 33 Creva Road, Londonderry. The death has occurred of Billy Moore, Creve Smith, Old Town, Letterkenny. Funeral from outside the family home at 2 o'clock this afternoon, travelling via McNeely Villas to Gortley Cemetery, arriving at approximately 2:30 for service in the graveyard, with interment afterwards in the family plot. Family flowers only, please, donations if desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member or Con MacDade, funeral director. The death has occurred of Patrick Grant, 5 Cloncool Park, Buncrana, and late of Middle Illies, Ballymagan, Buncrana. His remains are reposing at his home. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass in St Mary's Church, Cockhill, followed by burial in the adjoining cemetery. Family time, please, from 11 p.m. to 10 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. Funeral Mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv. The death has occurred of Sadie McCain, née Patton, 25 Ligford Road, Strabane. Sadie's remains are reposing at her late home. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 9:15 for Requiem Mass at 10 o'clock in St Eugene's Church, Glenloch, with interment afterwards in Glenloch Cemetery. Family time, please, from 10:30 p.m. to 10:30 a.m. Family flowers only, please, donations in lieu if desired to Ward 26 Outnagovan Hospital, care of any family member or Charles Lynch, funeral director. The death has taken place of Harry Kerr, 11 Gleneven, Clonbeg, Buncrana, and formerly of Coatbridge, Scotland. His remains are reposing at his residence. Cremation will take place tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock in Lakelands Crematorium, Cavan. Family flowers only, please. Donations if desired to Ash Animal Rescue. The death has taken place of Annie Breen, Middle Door, Bunbeg. Her remains are reposing at St Mary's Church, Derrybeg, with Requiem Mass this morning at 11 o'clock, followed by interment in Maharegallen Cemetery. The funeral mass can be viewed live on Kieran Rorty, funeral director's Facebook page, and on the Chalk Pobblewara webcam. And the death has taken place of Mickey McGinley, Derry Hereth, Creasla. His remains are reposing at St Michael's Church, Creasla, with funeral mass this morning at 11 o'clock, followed by burial in Doe Cemetery. Mass can be viewed live on mcnmedia.tv. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to Donegal Pro-Life, care of any family member or James Harkin, funeral director. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the second hour of the programme. It's a Tuesday, so coming up after the break, we'll be joined in studio by Garda Sergeant Ewan Walsh with the latest appeals and information from An Garda Síochána. Back after these.
It's time for Ncbi Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Tuesday the 17th of May. You're playing on the brown sheet. The reference number is S17. It's game number 20. The numbers are 71, 26, 73, 39, 2, 21, 32, 70, 60, and finally 79. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI Bingo information at highlandradio.com.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. The Euro Millions jackpot is an estimated €25 million. Play responsibly in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
Are you worried about trees on your property? Northwest Forestry Services Ballybuffet are fully insured and have over 40 years experience in dangerous tree removal, tree felling, surgery and stump grinding. For peace of mind, call Northwest Forest Services Ballybuffet for a no obligation quotation on 913233.
Don't sleep in and miss the very latest beds and mattress offers from dfibeds.ie, Ireland's leading online bed and mattress retailer. You'll get a comfy Irish-made mattress, upholstered base and headboard from an amazing €229. Check out the full range at dfibeds.ie. Delivery free and guaranteed to you within 7 working days. DFI Beds. Sleep well, live well.
Quick, write this number down. 91 48 234. Fleming Doors, you know. Industrial doors, garage doors, agri doors, insulated doors, milking parlour doors. Fleming, 91 48 234.
Donegal Baltanya Arts Festival presents RTE's Carol Coleman. Carol will talk about her book, News from Under a Coat Stand, which is a personal diary and social history of the first COVID lockdown from March to June 2020, and how it turned our lives upside down. Join us on Tuesday 17th of May at 7 p.m. at the Central Library in Letterkenny.
Okay, you're very welcome back. And we welcome into studio now Garda Sergeant Ewan Walsh for the Community Guard item. Ewan, always good to have you in. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good, Greg. How's yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're enjoying the good weather?
I'm enjoying the 2 days of summer. It's fantastic.
Be optimistic.
Okay. Come here. Hopefully it improves. Right, let's get on with the appeals. And we'll start with the theft of a car from High Road in Letterkenny. This very recent.
Yes, Greg. Yesterday evening, Monday the 16th of May, a silver Mercedes was stolen from a house on the High Road in Letterkenny between 8:30pm and 9:30pm. The registration number 05CE3630, so it should be fairly distinctive if anybody had seen it. 05CE3630. The car was actually located in the early hours of this morning at approximately 3 a.m. on fire on the Ballyrain Road area of Letterkenny. So we are appealing for anybody who may have seen the car in question, been driven anywhere in the town or anywhere in the adjoining areas of Letterkenny between those times, to contact the Gardaí of Letterkenny. And we're also appealing to anybody who travelled on the High Road yesterday evening between 8:30pm and 9:30pm and who has dashcam to make it available to the Gardaí of Letterkenny. And again, anybody who travelled on the Ballyrain Road area of Letterkenny this morning between 2:45am and 3:15am to make dashcam footage available. So it's a silver Mercedes 05CE3630, should be fairly distinctive.
Okay, and Gardaí in Letterkenny also investigating a theft from a business, is that correct?
Yes, the business premises on it's probably the town now of Drumnahoe, but it's known locally as the Port Road. It's probably adjacent to the outbound lane of the roadworks there at the minute. Last Thursday at approximately 6:50pm, that's Thursday the 12th, an attachment for a rock breaker and a power washer were stolen from the premises. and both items of substantial value up to €5,000, I'm told. So obviously a car or some sort of vehicle was involved, and we are very interested in any sightings of a white Vauxhall Vivaro, Vivaro van, partial reg DU19. That's a white Vauxhall Vivaro van, partial reg DU19. It was seen in the area on the date in question. So again, last Thursday, the 12th of May, around 6:50 p.m, and we're appealing again to road users who travelled on the Port Road as the outbound lane or maybe even the inbound lane and who has dash cam to make it available to us, or anybody who may have sightings of this Vauxhall Vivaro van.
Now,
again,
this is commercial equipment too, so
yes,
obviously
possibly,
it would be more easily noticed if it were to be passed on,
yes,
for
and
example.
possibly offered for sale at a price too good to be true, you know.
Okay, right. Now let's go to Ramelton, a theft at Gamble Square.
Yes, a Ramelton between 10 p.m. last Saturday the 14th and Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Sunday morning, so sometime Saturday night. Gardaí in Milford are investigating the theft of a set of number plates which were taken from the car which is parked at Gamble Square. So maybe a busy enough time. Somebody may have seen something suspicious or people acting unusual in the area to contact the Gardaí at Milford 07491 53060, or again the confidential line, Greg, 1800 666 111. And again, I would like to use this opportunity to remind listeners of your show the importance of contacting Gardaí immediately should they ever see anybody hanging about or looking in or tampering with cars.
Yeah, because recently I was speaking to a couple of people and they'd spotted a vehicle acting suspiciously, and no one rang it in.
Yeah, well, that's important.
That's if you see anything suspicious or anything like that, there, you're not wasting Garda time. Ring it in, because yourself is something's out of place, don't you? You just welcome those calls.
I think people are afraid there's probably nothing to it, and we don't have to be bothering the guards. It's better to rule it out than to have to investigate something afterwards.
All right, okay. Now, Letterkenny Gardaí, criminal damage investigation ongoing.
Yes,
too.
this is a criminal damage which occurred at the business premises and the Riverside retail unit on the Ncbi Road. Again, it was actually last Saturday again, between 9 p.m. Saturday night and 8:30 p.m. on Sunday morning. Anybody who windows were broken on the premises, and again a busy time was Saturday night in Letterkenny. Anybody who may have witnessed any unusual activity in and around the Riverside retail park during the course of the Saturday night to contact the Gardaí Letterkenny 07491 67100.
Now, looking for the public's help in the investigation into a crash in Killygordon.
Yes, this is a collision which occurred in Killygordon last Friday the 13th, and unfortunately it was unlucky for somebody. At 11 p.m, a large white lorry which is travelling from Killygordon, Greg, towards the crossroads is believed to have collided with an oncoming silver Octavia car while passing the car on the bridge. Again, damage was caused to the car, and the impact of the collision actually caused the car to collide with the wall of the bridge there. Thankfully, there were no injuries, and the lorry continued onwards towards the crossroads following the collision. And it is possible, Greg, that the driver of the lorry was unaware of what occurred. And again, so we may be appealing to any lorry driver who has travelled on the road on that date and time to check the lorry for any damage and come forward and speak to the Gardaí, even if only to rule themselves out. And again, maybe anybody in the area time who may have witnessed it or heard anything about the collision to come forward to the Gardaí at Letterkenny. So that's a collision between Killygordon and the Crossroads last Friday the 13th between 10:45 p.m. and 11:30.
And it's possible someone who witnessed that may now come forward with information, presumably, if the lorry driver didn't realise it but now does, listening to you, it's far better if they come forward themselves.
That's important, Greg, yes.
Put an end to it, all right. Your colleagues down in Ballyshannon are investigating an assault.
Yeah, this is an assault which occurred in the main street of Bundoran in the early hours of Sunday morning, the 8th of May, between 12:55 a.m. and 1:10 a.m. So that had been Saturday night, Sunday morning, the 8th of May. A male was assaulted by another man who was unknown to him. The injured man had to attend hospital for treatment of his injuries, none of which are believed to be life-threatening. So again, anybody who has witnessed the incident or may have dash cam, come forward to the Gardaí at Ballyshannon 07198 58530, and again appealing for taxi drivers and other drivers in the area who may have captured the incident on their footage to make it available to the guards in Ballyshannon.
All right, okay. Now, National Bike Week takes place. In fact, we're in the midst of it now. We see a lot of cyclists out on the road too, anyway, but we'll probably see more. Do you cycle?
Small bit.
Okay.
Yourself?
No, don't have a bike. I might get one of those e-bikes maybe if I could afford
Actually,
it.
one of the boys at work has them. He swears by them.
But you're not getting any exercise, are you?
I think it's cheating.
Yeah, I think it kind of is. That's my reluctance. But,
I don't know, maybe.
Do you want to name him? Or
everybody knows where he is. He parks it at the under the arch actually for everybody to see.
Oh, right.
It's a fine bit of machinery now. In fairness.
Fair play to him. That's his wheels. Right. Okay.
So yes, we're in the middle of National Bike Week. I suppose you say the longer evenings and the brighter days and the better weather, we'll see more and more cyclists on our roads over the coming weeks and months. And again, cyclists are as entitled to use the road as people who drive cars, lorries, etc. And the message is, if you're driving in a speed zone of over 50 kilometres per hour, you should allow at least 1.5 metres passing distance when overtaking a cyclist. And in a speed zone of under 50 kilometres per hour, allow at least 1 metre. And again, we remind cyclists to keep their bikes in good working order, and they must cycle within reasonable consideration. And they also must obey the rules of the road. And it's important to remember that you hear this famous, you would have said it yourself, the vehicle word is used by, the reason we use that vehicle word is it covers a multitude of
normally vehicle, but I take your point.
Yeah, well, it covers a multitude.
I understand what you mean.
A bicycle is actually a vehicle under the Road Traffic Act, and
that's a legal definition. It's not just what you're saying. That's and I do take your point. You talk about what the driver of a vehicle's responsibility, that extends to a push bike.
Yes, the normal offences of dangerous driving, careless driving apply to motorcycle drivers of bicycles as well. And there are actually some fixed charge notices for offences on a motor or a bicycle. No front lamp, rear lamp, those kind of things. Failing to stop at a school warden sign, proceeding past traffic lights when the red light is eliminated. So again, we're asking people on their bikes to remember that you're a vehicle under the Act and the same rules of the road apply to you as other road users.
All right, part of National Bike Week, we know Gardaí every now and again, I mean, they get a lot of they recover a lot of stolen bikes, we see trying to get them back in touch with their owners can be a problem. But you mentioned, expensive bikes, and you can pay anything you want to. A lot of these bikes now in the high hundreds, in the thousands, but then some people might go and buy a lock for it for €20 or something and put it on a wheel that's got quick release.
Yes, so the message is spend 10% to 20% of the value of your bike on your locks. Obviously lock your bike indoors or in well-lit areas if possible. Some people have a habit actually have to come back from a long cycle to leave their bike sitting outside and go home and have something to eat and forget about their bike, Obviously when you're locking your bike, ensure you secure it tightly to a heavy immovable object such as a lawnmower and keep the lock off the ground. Always ensure yourself, if your bike is in your shed, always ensure your shed doors and windows are locked. And again, take a photo of your bike, note the serial number, which is located on the underside of your bike close to the pedals, and email the photo and serial number to yourself so you'll always have a record of it. If your bike is stolen or lost, report the theft to Gardaí as soon as possible and ensure you provide your serial number if you have to. And as you said, many bikes were recovered and cannot be returned to their owners as their serial numbers have not been recorded. And here's another one for you. If you're going a long cycle and you stop and you're going for something to eat, you should have a lock with you to lock your bike.
Yeah, it makes sense too. Okay. And we'd love to live in a country where you don't have to, but unfortunately, that's just not the case. Just wondering, would it be possible to repeat about the Mercedes reg? It was a silver Mercedes 05 CE 3630 taken from a house on the High Road, Letterkenny, between 8:30pm and 9:30pm. Yesterday, unfortunately, later found burnt out. Okay. Any information to the numbers listed, as you would have heard, and if you're watching this on the Garda Síochána Facebook page, you'll see the numbers above this video, or you can use that Garda confidential line as well. Listen, as always, Ewan, thank you very much for your time. Good to have you in.
Have a nice week.
You too. Take care of yourself. That was Garda Sergeant Ewan Walsh. That was the Community Garda information item. It's back with you on the programme next Tuesday after the 10 o'clock news.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Now offering MyCU current account and debit MasterCard, bringing full banking features, delivered with the same local trustworthy service of your credit union.
Mum, we're starving. Can we have crisps?
Like clockwork, just as they're in from school. When did this become an everyday thing?
Please.
Sure, it's only a little treat. No, you're sticking to the new plan. Guys, remember what we agreed. No junk on weekdays. You can have cheese and crackers, yoghurt or toast.
At 3 p.m. on Tuesday, Joanne started with healthier snacks. Let's go easy on the treats. Start with smaller ones less often to keep your family healthy. Find more ways to start at makeastart.ie. Brought to you by Safe Food, the HSE and Healthy Ireland.
Interested in investing but don't know where to begin? A great place to start is Bank of Ireland's new webinar series, Invested. You can learn about investing with live webinars, guides and insights from industry experts. We know you've worked hard for your money, and with our expert support, it can work harder for you. So don't rest it, invest it. Visit bankofireland.com/invested. Bank of Ireland. Begin. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Ireland is a tied agent of New Ireland Assurance Company plc, trading as Bank of Ireland Life for life assurance and pensions business. Members of Bank of Ireland Group. Bank of Ireland trading as Bank of Ireland Insurance and Investments is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Thinking of changing your floors? Why not see what Florid Letterkenny has to offer? Florid have a large selection of solid, semi-solid and laminate click vinyl wood flooring, together with a fantastic choice of parquet, herringbone flooring, all at incredible value. Don't delay. Call Florid today on 087 161 7008.
Don't just do okay in your career. Do great at Allstate. Don't settle. Soar. Don't procrastinate. Innovate. Don't do mediocre. Do magnificent at Allstate. Great work, great life, great people, where great opportunities await. Search Allstate NI Careers today.
Is your bank charging you negative interest for holding company money? At John F. Lowry Financial Services, we can secure not only positive but competitive interest rates on a 5-year fixed deposit for corporate clients. Alternatively, it could be a great time to invest in markets, and we offer ways for companies to do just that. If you prefer to limit downside risk, we do offer products with a partial capital guarantee. Surely that's worth considering. Call John F. Lowry Financial Services on 91240002 and find out how our company can help your company. John F. Lowry and Associates Limited, trading as John F. Lowry Financial Services, are regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Terms and conditions may apply.
Okay, right. Some of your comments coming into the programme. Before we take a break of music, or break for music at 10:30, it would be great if the government built a huge hotel for millionaires only costing €5,000 a night, then use that wealth to help build homes for the public. Red brick all new homes and red brick all cancel older homes to make them warmer and help get rid of all these damp walls. We have red brick on the outside of as many homes to warm them. All right, okay. I'm not sure about that proposal, but I understand its motivation. Just wondering, would it be possible? Oh, I did that for you. That was the Mercedes registration plate, so happy to do that. We were talking about people working in laboratories, some of them going on strike tomorrow. It will have an impact on you, by the way. I'm sure your GP will let you know, though, by the way, if you are getting bloods done or whatever, that there could be a delay, but the delay will be greater next week and the week after. Medical science would do a lot better and be of more value if they also become a herbal medical science as well as general medical science. Many patients only want herbal treatments, and we should be able to get herbal meds from our GP based on combination medical science lab of herbal and general meds. Patients should have the choice. Well, these people are analysts, I think would be a catch-all, but I take your broader point. A caller yesterday walking Kinniger Beach or running it and was shocked to see effectively toilet paper washed up on the beach. This caller says, re-Kinniger sewage. Yes, Irish Water know full well that raw sewage is flowing out into the estuary from pipes just south of the pier in Rathmullen. I've been on at the council and Irish Water for years about this. The same problem in Downings, two of Donegal's favourite beaches. I regularly see human faeces, toilet paper and hygiene products washed up along Rathmullen Beach. Shocking, really, isn't it? Electricity is not giving the full €200 either. They're giving €176 of electricity. Don't know. Do you know the reason why? We must look into that. For that listener that requires the chair and table for someone getting out of hospital, if they would go to their public health nurse or occupation therapist, they should be accommodated. That comes in from Mary. Mary, thank you very much indeed for that information. Okay, let's take some music. Here's Dermot Kennedy. That's Dermot Kennedy there, back with our next guest on the 9 till Noon show after the break.
The 9 till Noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
At Lidl, we do things every day to make life better for us all. Things like being the first retailer to work with farmers on a sustainable beef programme to improve environmental impact, donating over 600,000 meals in the last year through our partnership with Food Cloud, and helping bees by doubling our number of pollinator-friendly stores in 2022. Decision by decision, day by day, we're taking Lidl steps to a better tomorrow. Join us on our journey today at lidlsteps.ie. Lidl, more for you.
If you're 65 or over, or you have a weak immune system, you can now get your second COVID-19 booster vaccine. Your vaccine is due 4 months after your last vaccine. It will improve your protection from COVID-19. You can book a vaccination centre appointment on hsc.ie or contact a participating GP or pharmacy. For more information on your second booster or to book an appointment, visit hsc.ie or call our team in HSE Live on 1800 700 700 from the HSE, for us all.
The government is supporting Ireland's transition to electric vehicles. €100 million will be invested in EV charging infrastructure over the next 3 years. But first, we want to hear your views. To take part in the Department of Transport's public consultation today, simply visit gov.ie/EV consultation. That's gov.ie/EV consultation.
Now, an addiction expert has told how some people are popping dozens of painkillers a day. Dr. Garrett McGovern says, I remember treating one man and I could see him in the waiting room from a distance. He was ashen. The guy was taking about 48 tablets a day. He had holes burned in his stomach. Dr. McGovern joins us on the programme now. Thank you very much, Garrett, for joining us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me,
Medical Director at Priority Medical Clinic and GP specialising in addiction medicine. How wide-scale do you think the painkiller addiction problem is in this country?
I think it's a lot greater than maybe we sort of think. It's very much under the radar. Now, we're seeing an awful lot more of it in treatment services over the last 10, maybe even 15 years, but certainly in the last 5 years, it's sort of intensified in terms of people coming for treatment. The numbers coming for treatment, I mean, I think in the article in the paper, it was, 10%. I suspect it's even less than that, to be honest with you. I think that there's a lot of people taking these pills fairly routinely who really, probably because they're over the counter, don't maybe think that they have a problem, and many of them end up having problems, and they're far more likely to end up having a consequence of that addiction rather than getting the addiction itself treated. So as you highlighted at the top of the programme, you mentioned stomach ulceration, bleeding. These are surgical emergencies.
So he would have presented there with, sorry doctor, but my stomach's in bits. And you go, right, well, what could this be? And then it turns out that he's going through so many of these tablets. So you only see it once it manifests itself as a physical issue.
Yeah, well, this particular case involved somebody who had already been under the care of surgeons. So we're talking about, and this is just one of a number of cases. I mean, so the patient who attended me, their hemoglobin, which is their blood count, was very, very low because their bleeding it was trickling away in their stomach. Sometimes those bleeds can be catastrophic and it can be a surgical emergency, or sometimes rather than cause bleeding, they can cause perforation. And this is just due to chronic use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, which is the component that is contained in these medications. So although the person will get addicted to codeine, which is the opiate, the codeine doses is usually quite low. But unfortunately, once your habit starts to escalate, your tolerance starts to go up, you're going to need more and more of these tablets. The problem is you don't need the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory component of them, but you have to take them in order to satisfy your codeine needs in terms of staving off withdrawal. So that's the problem.
So In terms of why people might find themselves addicted, do you think it's self-medication and then it just happens and they don't see their GP for a long time and it's not picked up? Are there gaps in the health service or in our care that people feel they've no choice but to manage pain this way and then they become addicted, or is it some combination of the both and more?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question. I think the vast majority of people, it's very, very rare that people would start taking these medications to get some sort of a buzz out of the medications. That's not really the way it happens. Usually what happens is they take them for legitimate reasons. But what sometimes happens is they will take more than is recommended. And when they take more that's recommended, they might feel that they get some sort of feeling of well-being from those medications. The problem is, in those circumstances, this is even far long after pain is gone. These patients then will realise that they don't feel so good when they stop taking the medication. So they escalate their habit and then they don't have access to them. And of course, that's a driver to take more of these medications.
Yeah, and I presume the mind is such that it can sort of trick you into making you feel you need to take them.
Yeah, but it is a physical addiction. I mean, it's one of the lower. I mean, in terms of, I deal with a number of opiate types addictions. Obviously, there are much stronger addictions like oxycodone, and then obviously we have heroin addiction. So it's sort of down the scale of it, but it is very, very significant because unlike those other addictions are what we call mono-opiate addictions. So you're just dealing with opiates. You're not dealing with the physical complications of stomach ulceration and in some cases renal problems. And in the case of paracetamol and codeine preparations, you're talking about the liver. So it's the complications of the other medications. Now, the other issue on top of this is that a lot of people are very, very, and I include doctors, they don't really know what the optimum treatment is for this. So some people say you have an addiction, you might need to go into an addiction facility. The treatment for this is really, really simple in many ways and really, really effective. And it's opiate substitution treatment. So we're talking about drugs such as methadone. And now in recent years, which has worked very, very well for this, is a drug called buprenorphine, which is a similar to methadone, except methadone is a liquid. This drug is taken under your tongue. Mm-hmm. But they work really, really well in dealing with your codeine needs, and really people just cease taking these tablets.
But that has to be, and I wonder, are we anywhere close to being it? I'm not sure if I could call you an outlier as such, but do you think there is a general understanding or acceptance amongst our network of GPs that, this type of addiction exists and the remedies that you've outlined there exist? Like, are people actively being treated in surgeries, in Donegal and Galway and Sligo and Offaly? Are they being treated for these type of addictions? Like, are GPs picking up on it?
No. In my opinion, there is a paucity of both awareness among GPs and also treatment options for people. I mean, you have to remember there is another problem which is improving in recent years, and that is the availability of these medications. Even, let's just move aside painkiller problems. Even for people who have heroin problems, opiate substitution treatment isn't widely available all over the country as well as it should be. There's many examples, for instance, in Donegal of people who've had to come down to Dublin to get treatment for that. So it will be no different for this. The same treatment. So, in answer to your question, no, the awareness and the treatment availability is just lacking.
It's kind of interesting because a couple of months ago we were speaking to a gentleman on this programme and he rang up because he was angry at a pharmacist. I think he said I can't remember the tablet, but he has a couple of drinks and he goes into the pharmacist and orders this tablet, and he finds it's best for his hangover, believe it or not. And he was offended, right, because someone working in the pharmacy took him to one side and said, what are you taking this for? And question him along those and advise that there might be, that potentially you could get addicted to it. And he was so offended that he was actually going to go the next day and return the tablets and never darken the door of the pharmacy again. But I presume that pharmacy was acting in good faith and it was to avoid the type of problems that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The pharmacist is absolutely, vigilant to these issues. The one where I feel sorry for pharmacists is that they're doing the right thing. The problem with pharmacists is they don't really have, in some regions of the country, they don't have ready-made options. And I don't think they mention those options. And a lot of people, it is very daunting if you say to someone, look, it's hard to say to someone you might need opioid substitution. You kind of, oh God, that's for heroin users, and people get kind of very alarmed by that. I think we need to sit down and work this through, but we just need to create a greater awareness about this so that it's less stigmatizing when people hear phrases such as opiate substitution treatment, and that, there is treatment available. Here's a number. Give it a ring, and then off you go.
And going back to that conversation with that gentleman too, though, he did say that if these drugs are dangerous or addictive, put them on prescription. I'll use something else. They're freely available over the counter, which in a way, maybe that's the conversation we need to have. What should and should not be available over the counter? Because, even the smallest of towns have multiple pharmacies. So, if you felt that there was a red flag there, it'd be very easy to sort of get around it and get all the medicine that you might need, in inverted commas.
It's a good point. I would have reservations about maybe putting things on prescription like these. And I'll tell you why I say that is there's no doubt that the availability of them is greater. There's no question. The problem with putting something on prescription is the vast majority of people, to be fair, are actually using these sensibly. And I think the idea of clogging up, GP surgeries, people having to pay for a consultation to go and get simple pain relief is probably wrong. I think we need to be more inventive than that, and I don't think that's fair. If you're in immediate pain, you need immediate relief, and many people are absolutely owe their life to these medications when they're in acute pain.
Right, so then is it maybe more public information by way of adverts, and I presume, at point of sale?
Very, very good. That's actually a very, very good idea. Yeah, absolutely. Anything that creates awareness or anything that gets the conversation going. Like, this is brilliant today to see, yourselves doing this, because this does create awareness in people and just makes people think a little bit differently.
Well, that's it. I think that people may feel that they need to take some of these medicines, and they might be listening to this conversation and going, actually, is it a physical need to relieve pain, or is something else going on? And I think the more conversations like this, a lot of people might be able to resolve this themselves and look at what medicines they're taking.
Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly what we need, and we just need to keep it alive. Sometimes I do these little interviews from time to time, and they kind of, people create a little bit of awareness at the time, and then it kind of dies down. I think we need a bit more of a campaign on this. I absolutely do, and you're right.
So, just so we're clear, I'm not sure we can mention brand names or not. I don't think. I mean, they're readily available. But what type of medicines are we talking about here?
Okay,
Ibuprofen or what?
So the drugs that are on the market, I want to be very clear with this, and I have to stress this in the interview that I did, the article, is that these medications are very, very, very good medications. They have been, well evaluated, and they've been on the market for many years. So we're talking about medications such as Solpadeine and Nurofen Plus. Taken as directed, they are absolutely really effective medications. But like any medication, doesn't really matter what it is, that if you take too many of these tablets, you can run into trouble. And the manufacturers of these things will tell you that themselves. It's well established that, a lot of paracetamol can affect your liver. And in some cases, where people have taken too many, it can cause liver failure or fibrosis of your liver. That can happen with paracetamol. And the other drugs well established with non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, that will be mainly ibuprofen in this case, can cause problems with the kidneys if you take them in excess, not in therapeutic quantities. I have to stress that.
But you see, really, at the end of the day as well, there's a greater health thing here probably going on, because if you take the recommended course of these tablets and pain still persists, that's an indication that you need to go and see your GP.
Yeah, now that's a slightly sort of separate issue. It's a bit complicated. If pain persists, well, really, like everything else with pain, you need to get to the underlying cause. Now, I've really talked about acute pain here this morning, but there is such a thing, obviously, as chronic pain. And chronic pain is very complicated. That's not acute pain. That's not like a sprained ankle or, a toothache. That's where you have chronic pain. You may have, for instance, back problems. You may have other problems that are causing pain, and sometimes, sadly, the medical side of it, experts have got to have investigated it from top to bottom, and the pain still exists. Now, that's chronic pain that can persist for many, many months and years, and that needs to be managed. And thankfully nowadays we do have pain management specialists who specialise in this area, but it's very different to this issue, if you know what I mean. We're talking about acute pain and taking these tablets to excess.
And just finally, you mentioned in passing that you would see people from Donegal that have to travel down to get the extra excellent care under you and your colleagues. How significant is that, and how much of a focus do we need to maybe having some of these services regionalised? Because I just wonder, it could be a step too far for a lot of people.
Well, in an ideal world, we should have services in all the regions of the country that are equal. We don't live in that sort of society, and it's unfortunate. But you have to remember with opiate substitution treatment, that was essentially a response to the heroin epidemic in the 80s, and then we developed that in the 90s, opiate substitution treatment. And that was largely a Dublin problem then. But of course, then it expanded out and it wasn't a Dublin problem, solely a Dublin problem anymore. This is different. This is nothing to do with the Dublin problem. This is right across the country problem. So we don't have treatment facilities, and we should. There are some inventive ways that we can perhaps, even as an interim measure, improve this. We're doing a lot more telemedicine nowadays than we did before. Virtual clinics, that's been really, really successful in places like Canada, which is a vast expanse, and they're just, many people living rurally that wouldn't be able to access services, but they can access services through virtual consultations in local health centres.
Okay. And just very finally, a question on antidepressants. They are prescribed quite widely. Sometimes it is for people presenting with, a mental health issue. Also presenting, because my understanding is they are very good at treating a number of things at lower dosage. Do we have a particular problem with the dependency on antidepressants in this country?
This is a very polarising argument, because doctors will always sort of stand by these medications and say no, there isn't, and many people say yes, there is. I don't know, to be honest with you, the answer to that. What I do know is this: is that if a patient has mental health problems, we should be adopting what I call a holistic approach to this. So there should be more talking therapies, there should be more mindfulness, there should be more counselling, there should be more cognitive behavioural therapy, and of course medications can help. If there is an over-reliance on medications, but there isn't any of those other therapies, then yes, there are many patients that are probably stuck on antidepressants that are probably not doing them any good, sometimes getting side effects from them, and that's not good. So you need regular review, but you need a more holistic approach to the problem.
Very finally, a listener's partner addicted to nicotine gum, €20 a week they're spending on it. It is an addiction. Have you any quick advice or something they could do?
Can I say this, right?
Go ahead.
Stay on the nicotine gum if you're going to stay away from cigarettes. Yes,
2 boxes of cigarettes a week.
Yeah.
All right, okay, I get you. Listen, thanks for your time, Garrett. Lovely to chat to you, by the way. Very informative. Lovely. All right, take care of yourself.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Garrett McGovern, Medical Director at Priory Medical Clinic and GP specialising in addiction medicine. Caller says one of the biggest addictions is benzodiazepines, such as Valium, Xanax, etc. And the doctors and psychiatrists think when you're on them for years, like 10 or 20 years, that they can just cut you down a quarter of a tablet a week and that's you off them. Not only is it dangerous doing it that quick, but the withdrawal is horrendous. And of course, there's bounce back anxiety or whatever you might be suffering from as well. Sulfadines are a big problem, says this caller. A person in my life will go from chemist to chemist to buy them. How could we attempt to regulate this? Because as a result, they get up to 5 boxes a week and we are so concerned. I mean, maybe something like that, you would treat that like you might someone who has an alcohol addiction, and an intervention that might be required in that regard. Complicated, how do you do it? I don't know, but maybe well worth ringing. Some of these addiction services are open to the families of people that are addicted, and I don't want to give any bad advice, but they might give some positive advice. If you're concerned about them and if they're going to those lengths to sort of satisfy their addiction, then it's something really probably, if you can, and it's hard to get involved, perhaps need to get involved in on. But as I say, there are charities, addiction charities, that work with families and people who support people with addiction as well, and they do a lot of work. And if you can maybe dig out some of those numbers, or I might try to give them a call and at least get it off your chest. Deirdre, very quick on Facebook. Thanks, Deirdre. The rebate for your electricity is €200. But less VAT, it works out at 176. So they take the VAT off, and in real terms, 176 is what's credited to you, Deirdre says.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering MyCU current account and debit MasterCard, bringing full banking features, delivered with the same local trustworthy service of your credit union.
Drivers, keep an eye out for the digital signs between Junction 4 Ballymun and Junction 9 Red Cow on the M50. The signs will be switched on to slow traffic in the event of a collision, roadworks, poor weather or congestion. Lowering your speed will help protect you, other road users, emergency responders and road workers. Respect the speed displayed and help keep the M50 safe. A message from Transport Infrastructure Ireland and the Road Safety Authority.
Small businesses often find it difficult to access the finance they need. Microfinance Ireland, the government-funded not-for-profit lender, can help. We help businesses who've been unable to secure finance from banks or other lenders. We provide business loans up to €25,000 to businesses of less than 10 employees with a turnover of up to €2 million. For more information, visit microfinanceIreland.ie or talk to your local enterprise office. Microfinance Ireland, funding small businesses in times of recovery and opportunity.
For all your health and beauty needs, you can always rely on McGee's Chemist in Letterkenny. If you need a prescription, just call or order online at mcgees.ie and it will be ready for you in advance before you arrive. For beauty and skin care, there's all the big names at great prices in store and online. And for your photo printing needs, simply download the McGee's Photo Prints app or click on the website link. McGee's Chemist, Main Street, Letterkenny. For all your health and beauty needs and so much more. Call 91-21409 or visit mcgees.ie.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Stress-free travel, 10 minutes from car park to departures gate, and a selection of 19 destinations across the UK and Europe to choose from. Can only be one place. Ireland West Airport. You're flying.
Now it's going to become drier throughout the morning with scattered showers developing by the evening, turning heavy or thundery at times. Temperatures 16 or 17 degrees in moderate to fresh southerly winds, and that's kind of going to be the pattern of the week. But I think towards the end of the week, whilst the east and south is getting heavy rain, we might escape some of that. Right, a caller says a mattress and a bag of rubbish was dumped at Trusk Loch outside Ballybofey last night between 9:45 and 10:20. A caller is appealing to the owner to please come back and get it. They say they have the registration of the vehicle and that they will contact authorities if it is not collected again. The area is used often by walkers and is a beautiful area. So if you dumped that mattress and rubbish last night at Trusk Loch, a caller says they have your details and they're going to pass them on. Caller says, Greg, my electricity provider dropped the €200 into the middle of my bill rather than it being credited to my account. It was automatically taken off my bill, and as a result, I was charged VAT. The result was I lost €26 of the 200. Furthermore, I actually had the money for my bill this month. I would have preferred to have banked the credit for a month where I would have been stuck. Okay. Reports of sewage on the beach at Rathmullen. I certainly won't be going for a dip anytime soon in Loch Swilly, says a caller. Chris, no, Chris isn't there. We'll try and get Chris back in. Do you need the number? You have it? Okay. Report. I've just read that one. Okay. Greg, the Ladies' Leisure Cycle, organised by Finn Wheeler Cycling Club for Bike Week, is leaving Glenside Business Park Ballybofey this evening at 7 p.m. for anyone that wants to join in. Also, to make motorists aware that there will be a group out on the road. It's open to members and non-members. Thank you. There's a small river in Bridgend which is running straight into Inch Wildfowl Reserve. A load of dead fish was seen floating in it a couple of days ago. Right, okay. Thanks for keeping us updated on this information. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning. How's things?
Not too bad at all. Following on from our conversation there with the addiction specialist, what's your point, Chris?
Yeah, that'll be one of the things I'll be really afraid of, is getting addicted. Like, I suffer from migraines and headaches. Like, I would have it nearly every week. Sometimes it goes on for 3, 4, 5 days in a row. And the only tablets that actually do work for me is the sulfadine tablets. And I know you can get addicted to them, so we can only take them for 3 days at a time and so on. Like stuff Panadol and stuff like that. Like, I could be taking full packet and still wouldn't do nothing for me. That's the only tablets that actually do work.
Yeah.
but apparently they are very, very highly addictive tablets.
Yeah, but I just wonder, you know, and when we were talking to the doctor there about addiction, it's people taking tablets that they don't need. I would imagine, and I'm sure you're having this conversation with your GP, there's a balance here, isn't there? There's about you getting these migraines regularly and having to be able to function in your life as best as you can. These tablets being affected in their treatment, and the balance between the potential for an addiction versus, you know, your general quality of life, Chris. That's the balance for you, isn't it?
Yeah. This is really, really hard. Then, like, you know, let's say I have a headache for more than 3 days. Like it says in the packet that you can only take so many tablets a day, and 3 days max, I think it is. What do I do then? Like,
but you know yourself, don't you? I mean, I presume you don't need these tablets between your bouts of migraine.
No.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it sounds to me, Chris, that, and I can understand why you'd be worried, and I would too, but it sounds to me like that you've kind of got control on your pain management. You know, that you only take them when you have your migraine. And I think, you know, the doctor was talking about people who are better, but they continue to take them because they've got a dependency on the codeine.
I would say so, yeah. I suppose it's like, cigarettes or alcohol. Like, you just take it then to make yourself feel better, I suppose.
Well, the fact that people who are addicted to ciggies, you can't take a break. You know, you can't just smoke when you have a migraine and then not. So I think, you know, it sounds to me like, Chris, you're on top of the situation. But how hard is it to live with the migraines, Chris? Or function with them? I mean, you know what I mean. I don't mean live, but you know what I mean.
You just kind of get used to it, and you just bat it on. Like, you know, when you have, for example, when you have your own business, you just get on with it, and sore head and no sore head, you just have to go and
can anything be done? I mean, I presume you've tried to find out if there's any triggers, and you've changed your diet a million times and all that stuff.
Yeah, I tried the piercing in the ear. I do get acupuncture. That's actually really working for me last time.
Okay, good.
Back a couple of years ago, I had the operation done with a sinus septum straighten up, like, and that did work for a couple of months, but back to the same thing again, like, you know. So kind of at this stage, you just get on with it and just try to do whatever you can.
All right, okay. And what works for you? Do you, is it darkened room, that type of stuff, or is it just the painkiller?
No, just normally if I would get the tablets before, when I feel the head, kind of sore head coming on, if I would take 2 tablets, helps then, like, you know. It doesn't last as long as not a sore, but if you leave it too late, it's just a dark room and sleep. That's all you can do.
Oh, it's a tough one on you, Chris. Listen, thanks for that. I appreciate it. Nice to speak to you. Okay, take care of yourself. Maybe you're in a similar position and can sympathise with Chris. I think many people do suffer from migraines, and could, no doubt about that. A caller says, I was on the ferry from Buncrana to Rathmullen a couple of years ago, and halfway over there was a wide line of raw sewage floating in the Swilly. Needless to say, me or my children have not been in the water there since. Any views on that? 086 60 25,000. It's funny, one text can trigger a whole load of other texts of people thinking and feeling the same thing. All right, you are tuned to the 9 till noon show here in Highland Radio this Tuesday, the 17th of May. We have another busy hour for you. Stay right where you are. You won't want to miss it. We want you involved as well with the usual numbers and ways of communicating with us. But it's time to get an update from the world of news. And 11 o'clock, we say good morning now to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. The Taoiseach says there is a path to resolution over the issues raised about the operation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. It comes as the British Foreign Minister prepares to bring legislation forward to scrap parts of the agreement. Liz Truss will make the announcement in the House of Commons in a bid to help restore power sharing at Stormont. But Micheál Martin says unilateralism does not work in terms of the Good Friday Agreement. He says it's extremely important that the British government and EU engage in dialogue. Gardaí in Letterkenny are investigating the theft of a silver Mercedes car from a house on the High Road between 8:30 and 9:30 last night. The car's registration number is 05 CE 3630. The car was subsequently found on fire on the Ballyrain Road shortly after 3 this morning. Gardaí anxious to hear from anyone who saw anything suspicious in either area or has dashcam footage. Meanwhile, Gardaí say a lorry driver involved in a collision with a car near Killygordon on Friday night last may not be aware that the incident had taken place. It happened as the lorry passed a car on the bridge heading toward Crossroads. There were no injuries. Gardaí are urging lorry drivers who may have been in the area to check their vehicles and, if they notice any damage, to get in touch. A Lifford-Stranorlar Area Councillor says the continued delays with the Twin Towns bypass are frustrating, but Donegal County Council will continue to push it and the other two 10T road projects in Donegal, the Letterkenny Link Road and the Manor Cunningham to Lifford Road. It's after a recent meeting of the Council's Road Strategic Policy Committee was told that rising costs and other issues mean it's likely to be 5 years before the projects actually go to construction. Complaints to the Children's Ombudsman soared by 79% last year, with 2% of the complaints coming from Donegal, 42 in total, just over 2,400 complaints from across the country. It's been suggested a 4-day working week could help resolve the staffing crisis in the health service. Younger healthcare workers have been increasingly moving overseas to the likes of Canada and Australia since the COVID pandemic in search of better pay and working conditions. Trials of a 4-day working week are underway in Scotland and Spain. And ministers are meeting today to discuss the provision of a new national maternity hospital. It had been postponed for 2 weeks, with the government aiming to provide clarity on a range of issues surrounding the project at St Vincent's. There had been calls for a further delay, but as he entered Cabinet this morning, Health Minister Stephen Donnelly said he's expecting a government decision today. And we're back with news headlines again at 12 noon.
Okay, Donald, thank you. Caller says magnesium has helped my migraines greatly. I'm not sure if Chris has tried that, or maybe he could, but magnesium helping one listener there. And another responding to the person who found the mattress and says they've got the number plate of the Gardaí and that they'll pass that on if the person doesn't come back and lift it. I don't know if they actually have it or not, but they say they do. But this caller believes that that person who found that mattress and rubbish should report it to the Gardaí ASAP, immediately, because the likelihood of anyone coming back now is slim, very slim, they say. Okay, back with more after this quick break.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from 40,000 to 600,000 euro with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Getting involved in this year's Bike Week couldn't be easier. Starting on Saturday, May 14th and running until Sunday the 22nd, you'll find a host of events and activities in your local area to suit your level of experience. So, whether that's family freewheeler or a conscientious commuter, click into gear and visit bikeweek.ie to learn more. Supported by Transport for Ireland, your local authorities, sports partnerships and funded by the Department of Transport. Whew.
McCullough Jewellers in Letterkenny are synonymous with fine jewellery, quality watches and giftware, with stores at Main Street, Letterkenny and the Letterkenny Shopping Centre, or online at ormccullough.com. You can choose from their quality product range in a relaxed atmosphere, and their sales staff will be happy to help you make the right choice, whatever the occasion. McCullough Jewellers, making moments magical for generations.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why.
The Euro Millions jackpot is an estimated 25 million euro. Play responsibly in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
If you're having any hearing difficulties, at Donegal Hearing Clinic we can help. If your hearing loss is slight but you want to look into it, or it's got to the point where you've no other choice, we'll do what it takes to resolve your problem. It may be as simple as a wax removal. Donegal Hearing Clinic, Pierce Road, Letterkenny and Milltown Business Park, Buncrana. Call us on 07491 88470 or visit donegalhearingclinic.ie. Life sounds brilliant with Donegal Hearing Clinic, Letterkenny and Buncrana.
Mum, we're starving. Can we have crisps?
Like clockwork, just as they're in from school. When did this become an everyday thing?
Please.
Sure, it's only a little treat. No, you're sticking to the new plan. Guys, remember what we agreed. No junk on weekdays. You can have cheese and crackers, yoghurt or toast.
At 3 p.m. on Tuesday, Joanne started with healthier snacks. Let's go easy on the treats. Start with smaller ones less often to keep your family healthy. Find more ways to start at makeastart.ie. Brought to you by Safe Food, the HSE and Healthy Ireland.
Now we're joined on the programme by Lorna Siggins, who's a journalist working in print and on radio, former Irish Times Western and Marine correspondent, and author of Search and Rescue, True Stories of Irish Air Sea Rescues and the loss of the R116. Lorna, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
It's great to have you on the programme. The search and rescue services, it's something very close to our hearts. We have a great understanding and great generosity to it, particularly in the coastal areas of our island country. I'm not saying they don't in the Midlands, but I'd be more aware of us here along the northwest coast, of course.
Yeah, and obviously you have an awful lot of activity up there, and that's very much featured in the book. It's, it starts off with the death of Katrina Lucas, the Irish Coast Guard volunteer off the Clare coast in September 2016. And then the Rescue 116 off the Mayo coast in March 2017. But then it's also looking back on the development of our Coast Guard service and the RNLI, the great role played by the RNLI, and where it all started up in Donegal with Joan McGinley or Joan O'Doherty, who started that campaign in 1988 to improve search and rescue cover off the West Coast.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. But did you purposely want to discuss and cover the loss of those involved in it? Maybe to highlight, I don't know what your motivation would be. It's important that we cover it, but that it's not without risk and sacrifice that these people get involved in keeping our coasts and us as safe as possible.
Yes, because back in 1999, 4 Air Corps crew also died. They were returning from a rescue at night. It was the first day of 24-hour helicopter cover off the southeast coast, and those 4 air crew died. So obviously we do remember their names, but it's important to remember the big risks that people take when they go out. And many of they're professionals, but then there are also volunteers with the RNLI and with the Coast Guard units.
Yeah, so talk to us about the establishment of, particularly, I suppose, the air support element of search and rescue.
So I suppose the book is going back to the 1960s and the arrival of helicopters. And one of the first helicopters to carry out a rescue off this coast was off the Donegal coast. It was a Navy helicopter that came from Derry to pick up a crew of a frigate that had got stuck on a rock. But then it's covering the Air Corps and how it carried out daytime search and rescue, the sort of pioneering missions that they made. And then it's moving on to that campaign that was run by Joan McGinley or Joan O'Doherty, and the decision by the government then to set up an actual Coast Guard service, and initially a base in Shannon, and then a base at Finner Camp, which then moved to Sligo, and then 4 bases, Shannon, Sligo, Dublin and Waterford.
Yeah, okay. And obviously this is all very current too, because contracts are being negotiated and there was a threat of us losing one of those centres as well. And it's interesting that we're all aware of that, because this is so much part of our life and existence and our general knowledge.
Yeah, I think we are all aware, and we see, people see the helicopters flying, and the Air Corps is also involved, and it's covered in the book because it's based in Athlone now, and it runs an emergency medical service where it's going to carry out sort of air ambulance missions inland, and one of those was a young lad who had a terrible incident with a trailer down in Cappoquin in County Waterford, and he wouldn't have survived. His father thinks he would not have survived if the Air Corps had not been able to fly him to hospital, because he wouldn't have survived the ambulance trip by road.
Yeah, and it's a balance, isn't it, to be struck here, because and I want you to talk to us a little bit about how you write about the loss of the crew of Rescue 116 in March, because it's not just recounting the events, but it's also looking at what led to it, what was wrong, what warnings were ignored, what failures there were.
Yeah, and I suppose this is covered in the final report into the Rescue 116 crash, and the fact that crew were able to talk. I mean, within the first week of that crash, we had a primetime programme highlighting issues with maps and with navigational equipment. And then further revelations about that primetime several programs before the final report. The preliminary report identified that as one of the issues. The preliminary report in April also talked about the fact that the personal locator beacons worn by the pilots were incorrectly fitted. And so if there had been a chance of them surviving the crash, they mightn't have been located at sea because the personal locator beacons weren't working properly.
Yeah, okay. And we also learn a bit more too about the 4 crew that lost their lives as well. And I should name them, of course, out of respect: Dara Fitzpatrick, Captain Mark Duffy, Paul Ormsby and Kieran Smith.
Yeah, and they all loved their jobs. And so the book does talk about what brought them to their work with CHC helicopters or the Irish Coast Guard. And I think what's really sad is the fact that both Paul Ormsby and Kieran Smith are still missing. Their bodies haven't been found. There was a very extensive search. There was a big search by fishing vessels that came down from Donegal to participate in a day-long search to see if their bodies might be found, but they're still missing 5 years later.
In relation to that tragedy and other issues that you cover in the book, certainly, some failings, need for improvement. Like, do you believe with your knowledge and your research that we are learning lessons, that, we are putting measures in place to plug holes where they need to be, or to ensure as best as is possible that things that happened, we won't see history repeating itself?
Well, I would hope so, because that Air Accident Investigation Unit report is really, really thorough, and it's really well written for, somebody. I'm not an aviation expert. I'm not a pilot, but I think all of us would find that there were many parts of that report that we can understand, and they're very good at explaining the technical detail. But there is an issue with oversight, and that's something that I suppose is, that has come up before. And if you go back to the Tremor crash when the Air Corps crew died off Waterford, there was also an Air Accident Investigation Unit report into that. And although it was a very different situation, and there are many things that are different about that, there are some similarities in relation to support and oversight.
Yeah. And you also, as you mentioned, you discover that and other issues and Joan O'Doherty McGinley's campaign. But you also pick out some other rescues, some other stories from the history. Of course, Donegal's going to feature in there because of, we've such a long coast and such an active sea community. Yeah.
It's a great rescue that the Arranmore lifeboat was involved in with Jürgen White, who's now the chief investigator with the AAIU, but he was with the Air Corps at the time. And they had to try and assist a fishing vessel that had lost power off the Donegal coast. And the Arranmore lifeboat worked with the helicopter, and the conditions were really, really difficult. And the lifeboat worked to bring the vessel round to allow it to be, because it was very, very difficult to land on it in the swell. So that's in there. The Lough Swilly lifeboat as well, the wonderful work by Charlie Kavanagh of the Greencastle Coast Guard Unit, who has received a long service award. And he's been there from the beginning. He helped develop a system that is used by the Coast Guard cliff units. And he's been just involved in just about everything, including the recent tragedies that you had in Buncrana and Rathmullen. And he also knew Dara Fitzpatrick. So when Rescue 116 crashed, he went up to Malin and he helped the duty officers there. He said, even if you can just bring people a cup of tea, if you're not working yourself, but you can just be there. Mm. So,
and you also highlight the efforts of winchmen. Why those in particular? Are they the unsung heroes amongst the unsung heroes? I suppose you can only imagine some of the conditions, trying to hold the helicopter safe. Maybe there's another vessel trying to, maneuver the stranded vessel, and then you've got this person, that comes dangling down on a rope. I mean, it's stuff would be hard to recreate, and we've seen it in a Hollywood movie. Are they the unsung heroes?
Well, yeah, they say, I hope they don't mind me. They have the phrase, the dope on the rope, and
I can understand where that would come from within, certainly.
And pilots would have said to me, sure, we're only flying the helicopters, they're the ones who have to go down. And, it's a team, it's the winch operator, who's also helping to fly the aircraft, because they making that approach really, really difficult, in a heaving sea with this vessel that has no power, that's bouncing up and down, and trying to instruct people to keep calm and to take the high line and all those sort of things. So they work as a team, and so they are quite extraordinary. And Kieran Smith and Paul Ormsby were a winch team. There's one particular one that again, it was the subject of an award, Gary Robertson, with Rescue 118 in Sligo, and a call came in to assist a fisherman off Armore Island in April 2016, and he's in a small vessel and it had capsized in Ncbi Bay, and he was tangled up in his gear. So not only did Gary Robertson have to go down to help him, but he had to try and untangle all this gear as well. So he won an award for that, a Billy Deacon Award, which is named after a winchman who actually died in a rescue in Britain. So that's a special award for winch crew.
Yeah, and on first reading of the information, Lorna, it felt like there could be two books here. There could be one focusing on the awful tragedy of the loss of R116, and other stuff that you investigate and you highlight, and then there's these other stories of immense bravery and stories of rescues. But then on reflection, it makes perfect sense. This is the story of the search and rescue. That's it. Yeah, that is it. And I suppose the people who are involved, it's calculated risk for them, and they never judge. When the two women, the paddleboarders, were rescued in Galway Bay there nearly 2 years ago, they were apologising profusely for all the trouble they'd caused, but it was made very clear to them, no, you kept your cool, you're alive, this is what we do, this is what we're here for. So, there's never any judgment about those situations. Nobody's going to say to you, why didn't you bring your phone? Yeah, and in fairness, we would cover the stories of RNLI rescues, and some of them are false alarms, but they are always quick to say, do not presume it is or it isn't something. Always call us and we'll go out, and if it's a false alarm, all well and good, and if it's not, you could save a life. Listen, there's even a letter in there from Taylor Swift somewhere. It covers all areas, I believe. Listen, thanks for joining us. I know it's going to be of huge interest. The stories of Irish air-sea rescues and the loss of R116, Rescue 116. It's Search and Rescue. It's by author Lorna Siggins, who we've been speaking to. And Lorna, I presume, available in all the usual places one might expect to find it. Yeah, it is. And after costs, proceeds go to the RNLI. Okay. Listen, thank you so very much. And it's been lovely speaking to you. Thank you for having me. Thanks a million. It's our pleasure. Thank you. Take care of yourself. 086 60 25,000. Lorna Siggins there. Right. Let me see. We were talking about addiction to medicine. Obviously, we discuss a wide range of topics, not just from program to program, but from within. This caller said, I've had an addiction to tramadol for 18 months. When they stopped me from taking them, I took sulfadine, lots and lots of sulfadine. Had back pain, had migraine. The only thing that worked for migraine was Migrelief pink and yellow tablets. The importance of water when taking the tablets needs to be emphasised. Now I take nothing. I can't drink. Stomach is screwed. Liver is messed up. And I have the kidney of an 80-year-old. Okay, well, listen, I'm sorry for everything that you've been through. It's tough. And hopefully your body can recover and you'll feel better. Hi, I suffer from sinus a lot. Codapar works for me, even though I need to take 3 at a time, sometimes, not often. Now, I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing to do, by the way, so I have to just be a little bit careful. I'm not giving that as a tip or an advice. It's just a caller expressing what happens to them. Hi, Greg. My husband suffers the same way with migraines. He found a tablet called Excedrin. They contain aspirin, paracetamol, and a little bit of caffeine. They've worked wonders for him. Wow, that's great. And it's great for you too, I'm sure, because it's not just the migraine sufferer, it's the partner and the family as well. So I'm delighted that he's benefiting from that drug called Excedrin. I presume you can talk to your GP about that to see if it would be a fit for you if you suffer from migraines. Hi, Greg. I'm a pharmacist, and I know and understand that it can irritate people when we ask the questions about codeine products before we supply them. But all we want is the best care for that particular patient. Lots of people try to treat things on their own when really they need to be assessed by a GP at the very least. Somewhat unfortunately, I've had patients diagnosed with cancer, for example, because they were referred for an assessment instead of continuing to self-treat. Persistent pain with over-the-counter medicines. Your pharmacist just wants what's best for you. And that's what I was saying, sort of, that and I'm not sure the doctor picked up on the point. That's what I was saying, that when you finish the course of some of these tablets, it probably is no harm to check with the GP and say, look, it's not going away. And they can say, yes, look, it's an ongoing back problem. Or they can say, well, you shouldn't have that pain there. Let's do a couple of tests. That's the point I was trying to make. And in fairness to you, the pharmacist and others, we didn't get an avalanche of calls from people saying we find it offensive that pharmacists ask. I think most people would accept they're doing it for the right reasons. And as I say, that was just one person's experience. Councillor Michael McClafferty sent a message in. Those responsible for dumping the mattress and rubbish are unlikely to come back. For them to dump that mattress legally, it would cost €40. If they're caught with that mattress now, they would also receive an €80 on-the-spot fine. The penalties are not adequate. There needs to be an increase in the penalties to possibly 3 times the price to hit the pockets even more. And is there not, is it annual whereby you can drop mattresses off at some of these centres that we have around the country? Perhaps maybe it should be made available more often than annually. You know, I think there's never an excuse for an illegal dumping, but I think if it's the easier it is to dispose of, particularly the larger, bulkier items, then the less likely perhaps we are to see illegal dumping. I'm not sure. What do you think? Get in touch.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Is your bank leaving town? Letterkenny Credit Union is now offering MyCU current account and debit MasterCard, bringing full banking features with no appointment necessary to open your account.
There was a monster who lived in the trees, in the house that would rattle and shake in the breeze. It was cold and small, with a terrible leak that would drip on her head and her hands and her beak. She needed it fixed and all in one batch because she had an egg that was ready to hatch. So she went to the credit union for a renovation loan and got new windows, insulation, and extended her home. Monster loans from the credit union. Imagine more. Loans are subject to approval. Terms and conditions apply. If you do not meet the repayments on your loan, your account will go into arrears. This may affect your credit rating, which may limit your ability to access credit in the future. Credit unions in the Republic of Ireland are regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
As we move into spring, it's time that we look after what is precious to us. Are you struggling with your hearing? Your hearing is an essential part of your everyday living. Hearing is our social sense and connects you to friends and family. At Connect Hearing, we are here for you with our clinics at Courtyard Shopping Centre, Letterkenny, and Joyce's Chiropody Clinic in Dunlow. Our centres are open Monday to Friday, where you can avail of our hearing test, wax removal and repair services. Connect Hearing, connecting you to life.
We can all see how conflict affects energy prices. More than ever, we need to be mindful of how we use energy. By reducing your use, you can save money and lessen the impact. Here's how. Use your timer and thermostat to heat your home and hot water to the temperature you need. Use appliances efficiently and, where possible, outside the peak hours of 4 to 7 p.m. Consider walking, cycling, or public transport for short journeys. Drive at lower speeds where safe to do so. Government advice and supports are available for homes and businesses to help you meet this challenge. Find out more at gov.ie/reduce your use. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Okay, so 4 more cases of a rare viral infection have been confirmed in England. The infection is moneypox. The latest news means that there are currently 7 confirmed cases in Britain diagnosed between the 6th and 15th of May. Now, I don't know if our senses are heightened because of the pandemic. We have been, and arguably are going through. But a lot of people have taken an interest in this. So to get more information, we're joined by Professor Sam McConkey, infectious disease specialist at the RCSI University. Good morning, Sam. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Good morning, Greg.
Right. Okay. So monkeypox. It's in a family, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about the type of virus it is?
So its name is monkeypox.
I beg your pardon. Sorry, that's my mistake.
Woolly primate that we all love and are probably somehow distantly related to. So it's monkeypox, and it is a disease where I suppose at a clinical level it's a bit like chickenpox. Spots all over, feeling a bit off, and then a few weeks later you typically get better. It's common in probably some small mammals like squirrels and monkeys, very unusual in humans. I've come across it. I used to work in Sierra Leone for a couple of years, and there were some cases there when I was there. So all the way around from Congo, Nigeria, West Africa and East Africa, it's present. And the first case in London, which we were told about on the 7th of May, had travelled to West Africa and almost certainly caught the monkeypox fever and rash there. What's very unusual about what's happened in the UK, in London mostly in the last few days, is that the two next cases on the 14th of May were not known to the first case on the 7th of May. So that suggests that they're having ongoing, unexplained community transmission in London primarily. And then there were 4 cases announced yesterday. Again, 2 of them were not connected to the previously known cases. So there's almost certainly a lot more cases out there. And I think quite rightly the UK Health and Security Agency is doing a lot of detailed contact tracing. It's a bit like what we had with COVID, Greg. It's the same. It's contact tracing, it's self-isolation, it's taking your temperature and then staying away from others. It's spread by close contact. If you touch the skin of people with this, or even coughing, sneezing, breathing, touching towels, touching bedding, is how it's spread. The family are interesting. Everyone sort of heard of smallpox that was eliminated. It's virologically very similar to this, but there's also a cowpox, there's also a mousepox, there's a buffalo pox, and the one that your listeners in Donegal might know best, there's a similar virus that causes a disease called ORF, O-R-F in sheep. It's a sore mouth or scabby mouth in little lambs that don't suckle, spreads throughout the herd of young lambs. And again, humans occasionally catch it from the lambs and get a sort of an ulcer that heals over 4 to 6 weeks on their hand. So orphan sheep, very similar part of this family of the monkeypox.
Now, the medical experts in Britain are, advising the general population to beware, but they seem to have put a particular focus on men who are gay and bisexual to keep an eye out for symptoms. Is that because of the nature in which it transmits?
So that hasn't been a feature in the past. It's just social contact, people who live with each other or people who come close together. But you're quite right. The 4 cases that were announced on the 16th of May, all 4 were gay, bisexual, men who have sex with men. So it suggests that the networks of close contact from MSM have maybe been involved in the infectious spread of this particular instance of monkeypox outbreak, but that hasn't been a widespread thing in the past. That's something new, a new twist about this one. So it's not known typically to be a sexually transmitted. You don't really need to have sex with someone if you like to transmit monkeypox. Just breathing and touching each other is adequate. So household contacts are at high risk. So really household contacts, if they have any symptoms of fever or chills or flu-like symptoms, backache, headache, certainly any rash, really have to stay at home. 3 weeks of isolation, it's longer than the COVID isolation.
Now, I don't want to sort of exaggerate it or whatever, but you know yourself, to some extent, we're all sort of armchair epidemiologists at this point. And people might say, well, what if this mixes with COVID, or what if moneypox, there's a more transmissible variant or what have you. So just to put that to bed, or otherwise, Professor, what is there's no risk in that regard, is there?
There's been several small outbreaks in USA and Britain and Europe in the past of this, and they just fizzle out and disappear. It's not very transmissible historically. There's just a handful of close contacts get it, and then hopefully if they're isolating, the outbreak spread. So I really don't think we're in for what I would call a pandemic or even a national outbreak in Britain, or even risk of spread to Donegal or to Ireland from this. I don't see that as I'd say that's exceptionally highly unlikely based on the previous behaviour of this monkeypox virus. It generally just fizzles out. If we want to get technical, the R0 is less than 1. Do you remember all that R0 discussion we had? So the R0 of monkeypox is well less than 1. And probably the reason why it's spreading in the MSM is just there's a network of people who have a lot of social contact, a lot of close human interaction. So it's more about the network density and the amount of interactions people have in this group, rather than actually it's not a particularly infectious virus. So I would put it way down the list in terms of worrying about diseases. Anxiety, depression, back pain, neck pain. These are still big issues for us, but this is not a big issue.
And Professor, a word from you, if you don't mind, on the situation in North Korea. Obviously, given the nature of that country, information is limited, but they have accepted now, despite closing the borders, that they do have an outbreak. They have not a fantastic medical system. They've refused offers of help for vaccine from outside the country. So they have, as I say, a poor health system by some reports, and they have a low level of vaccination. And it's clear the leaders of that country are very worried. What do you think? What we've learned now, given the circumstances in North Korea, what an outbreak of COVID could mean for that population?
I think they could be in big trouble. It's this Omicron BA2 version of COVID that we've had here in the last 4 or 5 months is very, very infectious. And unless you have exceptionally high levels of social distancing, you can't stop it spreading throughout a population. So I think it's likely to spread widely throughout the population of North Korea, and a lot of the older people and immunocompromised people are likely to get quite sick with it. And we're very fortunate. The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine and some of the mRNA vaccines have been exceptionally good at protecting, particularly the elderly people in Ireland and Europe. And we're very privileged to have that BioNTech company who invented this in Germany, a year ago. That's much more effective and much quicker than I ever expected. And clearly, South Korea or North Korea and even China are not really rolling that type of mRNA technology
because
out widely.
Of course, we have thankfully a low mortality rate, death per case ratio. At the beginning of this, though, it was really quite high. I think it was around about 5 or 6%, perhaps even a little higher. Now we have the interventions. We had access to ventilators where needed. Where needed. You just wonder, what the death toll could be in a country like North Korea with everything against it. It's really quite. It's really quite worrying for them.
It depends very much, Greg, on the age profile of the population. If, like Bergamo in northern Italy, it's a lot of people over 60, 70, 80, 90 years of age, then the death toll will be very high because the COVID death toll is very dependent on the age that you are when you catch it. Whereas if you're young, most people are more or less fine. I think a lot of the folk in North Korea are, there's still quite a young population there. So I think the young will be fine, but I fear that the elderly could be in difficulty. I also think there's a political dimension that the leaders there, it is a command and control, essentially, I think it's fair to say, a dictatorship type of political structure there. And sometimes I think it's fair to say that some leaders can use a pandemic and an infectious disease as a tool to consolidate and maintain their control of the population.
Interesting, they're referring to it more so as a fever, that people are suffering from a fever than actually COVID. Maybe that feeds into your point. And very finally, Professor, what do you... thankfully, we're in a good weather now, and we've seen what happens in the past, but we know where we're at. Don't want to depress anyone out there listening, but just what do you think as we head towards into autumn and winter that we will be dealing with?
Well, I was very pleased. I was doing a bit of media last week about the hepatitis in small children, and just off the cuff, I sort of said we're at the tail end of a COVID-19 pandemic were the words that came out of my mouth, and I sort of cheered up and felt really happy about that, Greg. I said, I'm saying this out loud. It was on national television, and it was just so happy to be able to say that that's where we're at right now. So the question is, will there be another wave? There probably will be another variant of COVID because we've all seen it keeps variation and coming along. But I'm hopeful that I'd say if it was a gambling man, about an 80% chance that it'll be a milder variant again. So there's a small, maybe 1 in 5 chance that the next variant could be more severe and causing more disease, but I'm hoping it will be milder. I'm also optimistic that the BioNTech and Pfizer will come up with a new version of the vaccine that's a sort of updated, let's call it the 2022 version of COVID-19 virus, rather than the 2019 version, which is what we've all been getting. And we'll all be able to get that as a booster with our flu vaccine, hopefully next September, October, to protect us from what might be coming. So I'm cautiously optimistic and would be happy to be quoted and say we're at the tail end of a COVID-19 pandemic. We do need to realise, as I said, about a 1 in 5 chance of something bad coming back with it, but I'm hoping that the next wave will be much milder again, as we've all seen with the last one.
And if only we had a bit more stability around the world, that we could perhaps enjoy being at the other end of it fully. But anyway, it is where we're at. Professor Sam McConkey, as always, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Take care of yourself. He's Professor Sam McConkey, infectious disease specialist at RCSI. Okay, how are you feeling out there? 08660 25,000. Let us know. Give us a call on 07491 25,000. Maybe you have some good news to impart, a positive story that you want to share, an unsung hero that you want to profile. We're here for all of that too, 07491 25,000. You can speak to Michaela today or Donna Marie. They're lifting your calls. People that suffer from migraine need to go to their GP and get proper migraine medication for it. More often than not, ordinary pain relief medication is no good for migraine. And if we're referencing Chris, I get a sense that sometimes I get a sense that maybe he has spoken to his GP and that's it. But listen, we're none of us are infallible. It is possible sometimes to go to your GP and said, look, I heard that such and such can be useful. Could this be good for me? And the GP might go, right, okay, well, I've read similar, so we can give that a go. So I think it's always good to bring information to your GP as well, which is maybe a little bit of what we're doing today. Greg, this reminds me of a time nearly 20 years ago. Somebody I knew had contracted ORF, commonly found in sheep. They'd been to several doctors, and eventually a nurse in a hospital in Northern Ireland who had a farming background identified it. If that happens today, I'm sure things would be much different. Okay, interesting that we got the reference from the professor there to ORF, and it resonated there with one of our listeners and one of their life experiences.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering MyCU current account and debit MasterCard, bringing full banking features, delivered with the same local trustworthy service of your credit union.
At Michael Murphy Sports and Leisure, we know a good pair of trainers makes all the difference, whether you're running marathons or training for your first 5k. We stock all the leading brands, including Asics, Brooks and New Balance, with different styles and features to suit individual running needs. Call in store or shop online at michaelmurphysports.ie.
The Northwest Independent Clinic is now Kingsbridge Private Hospital. Yes, we have arrived in Ballykelly, and if you need treatment or surgery, there is no need to wait. At Kingsbridge Private Hospital Northwest, you will have access to over 300 consultants and hundreds of treatments and services. We are approved by all major insurance companies, and self-pay options are available. In fact, treatment could cost less than you think. And with guaranteed 5-star care from treatment right through to your personalised recovery plan, we will be with you every step of the way. So why wait? Visit kingsbridgeprivatehospital.com today.
Century Complex is the perfect family day out. Treat yourself to a tasty meal at Backstage Bar and Grill, an exciting movie at Century Cinemas, and explore Century Play. Get in touch with our team today on 074 912 1976 or check out our website centurycinemas.ie for more information on Century Complex.
Donegal Baltanya Arts Festival presents RTE's Carol Coleman. Carol will talk about her book, News from Under a Coat Stand, which is a personal diary and social history of the first COVID lockdown from March to June 2020, and how it turned our lives upside down. Join us on Tuesday 17th of May at 7 p.m. at the Central Library in Letterkenny.
Okay, now, we heard there are some delays as it relates to major roads infrastructure in this county. The Twin Towns bypass potentially delayed till the start of 2026. So not delayed as such, but won't start until 2026. Other Tenty Road projects in Donegal, of course, the Letterkenny Link Road and the Manor-Cunningham to Lifford Road. The news emerged of the time frame after a recent meeting of the Council's Road Strategic Policy Committee. It was told that rising costs and other issues means it's likely to be 5 years before the projects start. Councillor Patrick McGowan joins us on this. And, Councillor McGowan, I've mentioned this in the programme before. We're not talking about future projects necessarily here. If my information is correct, a lot of projects that had, the contracts had been awarded, the tender process had been gone through. But contractors pulling out of really some quite important and significant projects because there's no uplift in these contracts and they can walk away whenever they want. And between the cost of everything, including something as simple as tarmac, they're walking away. So we have a crisis beyond what's planned. I think there's a lot of current projects too that are going to be snowballed or mothballed, sorry.
Yeah, there is. And every contractor and every potential business or government, everybody hasn't had to go back to the drawing board on an hourly basis, maybe even a weekly basis, and then they're speaking to suppliers or manufacturers, steel, cement, like I have a number of them around here in our area, and even recently some of them saying that they would hardly tender for private jobs because whatever parachute you might get if you're working for a government job, like there's built-in scenarios there for costs and materials and unforeseens. But if you're taking on a private job and if you can't get the materials and if the price has gone up, you're certainly very, very worrying. So it's hitting all sectors, builders, suppliers, business people, just everybody supplying. And obviously this has been sort of raised at the different meetings when it comes to talking about the TNT, the bypass and the Balfour started. Maybe the only good thing about that is the fact that maybe when it does delay to 2026, that maybe costs will have kind of coming back down again or something. But at the moment, it's not sustainable because it's not what it costs. Nobody knows.
Yeah, but it's not just is it like the likes of Ballabafation or bypass. It's not simply just being able to get to where you're going quicker, but it also sort of slows up. Maybe if there's less traffic. The development of Ballabafane in order to make it, more of a destination rather than just something you might drive through in. I know it already is, by the way. I hope I'm not doing it any disservice, but it also delays that stuff. So, if there were plans to make it more of a destination town, better outer space, I wonder, can they end up being deferred?
Yeah, well, look, as you say, at the moment now, there's been a lot of thought coming to road crossings and residential and businesses within Ballabafane earlier recently, and there's big challenges there about car parks, on-street parking, and it's very difficult to do business in Ballabafane and around, even to cross the road, because of the volume of traffic, particularly at peak times.
Can I talk to you about, if you don't mind, about those crossings that have been put into Ballabafane? They are an accident waiting to happen because the pedestrian believes that they have right of way. I'm not sure of the situation in that regard, but there are no lights. And I've noticed driving through a couple of times already, people walking straight across the road, and particularly on the dark sections. If you happen to come up on it on the dark sections and they're in dark clothing, they are almost invisible. How do they go in there without lights?
Yeah, well, I don't think the lights would work because particularly
just to illuminate the crossing. I don't mean traffic lights. I want about lights to actually illuminate the crossing. People, particularly on the dark patches, are invisible because they're crossing, believing they've got right of way, and you can't see them until you're up on top of them. Now, obviously, you're driving at a responsible speed, but I'm telling you, Patrick, it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, and look, this is rightly named as a pilot scheme, and it's out there. And engineers are monitored, and that was agreed from the very, very start. They had to come up with some redress to try and get people over and back the road.
But can you imagine in 2022, though, we're putting in zebra crossings, okay, with no traffic lights and no illumination?
Yeah, look, there has been a difficulty there at the Bank of Ireland, down there at the Ballor and then in Stonorder, and a number of people have been knocked down. So I listen. And after would be pedestrian crossings or something like that.
I respect that there's a problem that needed to be solved. What I'm saying is, right, at night time, pedestrians believe that they've got the right of way walking across that road.
You only have the right of way.
I'm telling you what people might. I'm telling you what people might believe. I've had 3 or 4 people walk out directly in front of my car. I'm speaking from experience, and you've got your lights dipped. There's other cars coming in the other direction, right? But because not traffic lights, but because the crossing is not lit up, you literally can't see the people until you're on top of them.
Yeah, and that's why all of these issues that you and other people point out, I've been getting phone calls as well, saying that there was other locations that needed been crossing, and that's important that's fed in, and that something's done about it, because there mightn't necessarily have to be a big high street lights. There can be other kind of low level lighting. There is a lot of people are not happy with these new white LED lights are going up. There's a lot of dark spots, as you say, between the lights, and sometimes the locations for these crossings were put at what they believe are strategic places where people want to cross. But I do agree that the lighting, and that's something the council will have to take on board.
I hope they do so sooner rather than later, because I know you say, well, maybe the pedestrian doesn't have the right of way, but as soon as you see black, white in a built-up area, particularly younger people, you instantly think, right, I've got the right of way here. And at night time, and this was when there was no rain, but with other cars coming in the other direction, you can't see people in dark clothing crossing the roads. And I'm really worried that someone's going to get a nasty injury there, because what we've done here is we've said, right, there's a crossing for you, but there's nothing in place other than the markings on the road. So this was for pedestrian safety and for safety of crossing. I would argue my concern is, Councillor, it's actually probably made it less safe because there's a full sense of security there.
Yeah, well, look, there has been a number of accidents, and at about 3 particular places within Ballybofey and Stonorder, and that has been raised time and time again. This is the response from the engineers and the road design. It wasn't done by any.
It's kind of what worries me, but yeah, okay. But
well,
listen,
look, they have looked at it, and they have said from the very outside, and it was publicised by the council, that it is a pilot scheme. But they have
Patrick,
to look at it.
We Ross road users aren't guinea pigs, right? It can be a project, but we're not guinea pigs either. Here, let's see if this works and there's no accidents. You know, we're not guinea pigs. This is not like some sort of a medical test.
Well, the big problem is it's the volume of traffic. It's not. The bypass is always the solution to everything. It'd be ideal now if you could put 3 or 4 more sets of traffic lights in the middle of Ballybofey.
Not even the lights. Do a pilot project of these crossings, but illuminate the crossings so motorists can see the walkers. That's all.
And I would have the fear, because there is and other locations where you do. And shopping centres, I know there's a lot of shopping centres you do, even actually round at the Chestnut Road there, where the Aldi shop is, the exact same thing is there. It's been there for years and years. It's the black and white when you come out of there. And I often wonder, people do either be forgetful, they're not sure, they're confused, and they just think they have the right of way. There are quite a few of them in the county, but that doesn't excuse it. It's a busier road.
Yeah, I think in Donegal Town they have the crossings a darker colour. And that makes the motorist aware that someone might be able to cross, but it also the pedestrian is cautious, because they say, right, this is not.
This doesn't look like a pedestrian
precisely.
crossing.
So there's a bit of awareness from both, and it's well lit. The problem I would have with what you've put in there, not you've put in there, is that it's not lit up, and secondly, does the motorist feel they have to stop or not stop? Does the pedestrian feel they have to stop or not stop? And they're standing looking at each other. That's if they see each other.
Confusion, there's no doubt there. I do agree 100%.
It just worries me that this is what we're coming up as pilots. Do you know what I mean? And who are the test subjects? Sadly, it could be someone who walks straight across the road and gets knocked down.
It's not the first time they went down, but as you rightly said, and the other locations, we'll assume that they were easier to see, they were clearer, and in these locations there can be shadows between the lights, so that it may not be lit up, but it's clear. Obviously, it's not a pedestrian crossing, so. It's where you've been indicated. It's where you should cross, but only when the vehicles stop and let you cross. But
some texts. I have to agree with Greg. These crossings are very badly lit. I live in Letterkenny. We're waiting 40 years for a crossing at the post office on Letterkenny Main Street, yet to appear in Ballybofey. Another, the crossing in Stranraer is highly dangerous. When the town is busy with traffic, you can't even see the person crossing until they're on top of you. You can't see them. Another, you want to come down and see the shambles at Westbrook Bridge Junction in Buncrana. It is a nightmare, so there are other issues in other towns. Another, the new pedestrian crossing in Ballybofey is very dangerous. If they were to do it properly, they should have put lights on it, also to alert motorists. I can see the resistance to lights, But but the complete lack of illumination, I don't understand that at all.
There's another thing as well too, that it's not Donegal County Council or even the local office. The county council or local engineers, they just can't do what they like or what they choose to do when you're on Balflane Stone, because that's a national private road. A lot of that's governed by the TIA and that. So a lot of this thing has to be gone through them and approved. And when you do go down the country, down towards Sligo, down there, you see all sorts of different kind of road markings and different sort of traffic islands. You wonder, why can't we get them? So they do seem to put things in, different ideas into different towns, and they tell you then that there is a road safety design manual that have to go.
I'd love to see the road safety evidence that says black and white, unlit, unsignposted, black and white, that they are safe. I would love to see the documentation. There is a contradiction there.
There's no doubt about a contradiction. It's sort of half of an incomplete pedestrian crossing, you could say. So,
my concern is it gives pedestrians whether it's right or wrong, a false sense of security, and motorists can't see them. When are they going to put the footpath to the graveyard in Stranora? It's a very narrow and dangerous road from both approach roads, just in case that come up at the meeting.
The graveyard, I presume that's up Trumbo Avenue. There's a part of a footpath was built up there. I'm actually hoping that because it's Trumbo Avenue, and it is an avenue the whole way through, and it's one of the nicest walks in the county that takes you up through Dumbo. I actually think you should be dropping the speed limit in that entire avenue, not just putting up a narrow footpath. Like when you have hundreds of students walking down there 3 or 4 times a day, you would need a footpath about 10 times the size that it is. So even a footpath is not the answer just in an avenue. I presume that's the one they're on about. And see, the other thing is, if you want to take a footpath from the main street in Stranora up to the graveyard, you would have to start cutting down rows of trees along the front, because the trees, and I know there'll be a massive kickback about interfering with the avenue. We do have 2 or 3 walkways within the woods that will take you most of the way, and there is a lot of development there. But to start having to cut down trees to put on a footpath, I think it'd be rather lower the speed there from 60, 50 kilometres down to maybe 30. Because it is an avenue at the end of the day. It was well named. Pedestrians should have the right of way, and cars then using that as a secondary road or as a shortcut to school. The pedestrians should have the right of way there for the entire length of it, because the amount of people walks there every day, families, children, prams and everything. There's hundreds and hundreds of them every day. It's one of the main walks in the county, and to me it's not a narrow footpath by cutting trees. The whole road should be designated as pedestrian, and allowing cars to maybe crawl through it very slowly.
Understood. Listen, I know we invited you on initially to talk about the 10T road projects,
but
we wandered into another area, but I think that was important too.
Yeah. Well, the 10T is very important to this county. We've been waiting for years and years to catch up with the rest of the country. We're still in the game. That's what we're told. We're still in the game. We're delayed. The government brought in a new business case thing that will be presented, and regarding the importance on the environment. We're still in there. That's to be presented now to the TIA and the government before the end of the year, and then we will see if we're allowed to go to compulsory purchase order and final detailed design. But yes, engineers will tell you it looks like now it'll be more like 2026 before we get started, but we need to keep pushing. It's important for Donegal and for the region.
All right, this is like a mini clinic here. Why were loose stones placed in Drumbo Woods? You can't push your pram on the stones. I had to take my child out of the pram and carry them while dragging the pram. They need to do something about it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. In fairness, between culture and the local and council staff and stores, they are upgrading and they're fixing. Part of them pathways actually get flooded with a river and they get washed away and they go back in maintenance. But I agree that would not be satisfactory to have big loose stones. That wouldn't be right.
Councillor McGowan, thank you for your time this morning. Councillor Patrick McGowan there. We will be back with a weather forecast for you after these.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages with life cover provided at no additional cost. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
The Kia Sportage, Donegal's best-selling car for 2022. If you're thinking about making the move to Kia or to upgrade your current Kia, make sure to call in today to iMotors Letterkenny or Malin. With a 7-year warranty as standard, driving a Kia makes sense.
Talk about homegrown success. Grow with Aldi in association with Board Bia is now in its 5th year. It throws a spotlight on new Irish producers, and this year, 24 more were chosen. With products including apple-flavoured pork sausages from Meath and nut butter energy balls from County Cork. Plus many more exciting new Irish products in store from May 19th. Available while stocks last. Find out more at aldi.ie/grow. Aldi, everyday Irish, everyday amazing.
I can't stop thinking about them. I keep rereading their old texts.
Brian, this has got to stop. It's been months, and they send those alerts to everyone. You know that, right? Look, your bank is leaving, but you got to get back out there. Listen to me. Any bank would be lucky to have you, especially Bank of Ireland.
Really?
Yeah, they've even put together a simple step-by-step guide to moving banks and have a dedicated team on hand to help. Even an ending could be a new beginning. To start finding your new banking partner, download our step-by-step guide to moving banks. Search Bank of Ireland Big Move. Begin.
Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
The 21st of May 2022 will mark the 90th anniversary of Amelia Earhart's historic landing in Derry, Londonderry, when she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic solo. A number of events are taking place this weekend, 20th to 22nd of May, to celebrate her legacy. Visit www.derrystrabane.com/what's-on/Amelia Earhart 90 for the programme of events.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Fancy a city break this summer? You can now fly twice weekly to beautiful Cologne in Germany every Sunday and Thursday with Ryanair. Ireland West Airport. You're flying.
Okay, so let's look at what the weather holds for us. We had a cloudy start to the day with patchy rain and drizzle, though it will now become drier through into the afternoon. But scattered showers will develop this evening, turning heavy or thundery at times. Temperatures of 16 or 17 degrees in moderate to fresh southerly winds. Right, a caller says, why have vague road crossings where people have to guess how they work? Yeah, indeed, that's would be my point. You know, it's all right saying, well, if there's not lights, then it's not a pedestrian crossing and this, that and other. But at the end of the day, you know, it has to be simple because we have to think in the split second. A caller says, as it relates to the 10T projects, Donegal being put on the back burner again. About other projects down the country go ahead. In my opinion, as a fourth generation Letterkenny person, we have not progressed one bit. All we're getting with the 4-lane project is road furniture. What do you think about that? 08660 25,000. I can understand your frustration. It will be worth monitoring what is happening down the country. I suspect that it might be something that's happening nationally, but we shall wait and see. Right, stay here with your number one, Highland Radio. Coming up after 12, John Breslin's here with Around the Northwest with his usual mix of great music and guests. And then it's Jive Time with David James, bringing you through the afternoon with country and oldies. And then Ivan's in with Power Hour Plus. And then it kicks on into our brilliant evening schedule of programmes. But that's where we have to leave it on this programme today. See you tomorrow.